How's it going, everyone, and welcome to a very scratchy edition of No Excuses on VTWProductions.com and YouTube.com. The favorite show hosts are still
Marion.
And Volacel, I'm here to bring you the latest news and commentary about the video games industry for the week. My throat is about to collapse on me. It's really not working.
Too close.
And it was fine.
Too close.
I have no choice because I can't speak any louder than this. So,
yeah.
But my throat was fine up until about an hour, maybe 2 hours ago, and then it just started falling apart. I'm not quite sure why. I know I could feel that illness was coming on for the past couple of days, but it only just decided to hit immediately before the show, like every other problem that we're subject to.
It's a law or something.
Yeah, it's just that the timing is great, as usual. But first of all, if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server, which you can easily get to by clicking on the link provided in the description underneath the show archive on YouTube.
Yes, indeed. I am being bullied by a cat. Hang on. I shall deal with this.
You're always being bullied by animals. Literally a thing that is always happening with Fern. His animals are always higher in the household hierarchy than he is.
They're just incredibly insistent and incredibly annoying. Though the cat doesn't like being pushed out the door. So, do that, that's his problem.
Who's gonna die in our group? Who's gonna die in our group? Who's gonna die in our group?
Oh, the Praetorium rush to the door roulette.
Well, it's
I could have healed him, but then I would have died instead, and I decided that I was more interested in preserving myself because that's the true logic of any real healer.
Yes.
Oh, you can't res people if you're not alive.
But somebody needs to find out how the floor tastes.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the healer.
On the stream today, I'm playing a bit of Dungeon Mans. Dungeon Mans is a very retro-style roguelike. It is actually like Rogue. And I know, how funny is that when you name your genre roguelike?
Roguelikes, which actually have some similarity to Rogue? I thought that was against some kind of convention.
I thought roguelike just meant has some randomized element somewhere in the game. This makes it exactly like Rogue, you see.
Yeah, World of Warcraft is basically a roguelike.
Yeah, so is Dark Souls, by the way.
I have legitimately heard someone call Dark Souls a roguelike.
I mean,
because they died against the boss once. Is that enough?
Yeah, I will call this character Snuffit, because that is inevitably going to be what happens. So,
Palace of the Dead has more in common with a rogue than the sodding.
It does, actually.
Dark Souls.
But, roguelike as a term has been so horribly bastardized over the years, it doesn't mean anything.
It's any of the like titles that crib another game's name and put like after it.
Like Souls-like, just because the game is hard.
I thought that the whole point of the term roguelite was to make an excuse for all of those things.
I guess. But
like, it was I thought the whole point was so that you could say it's like Rogue, except it's not at all like Rogue.
It's because nobody's played Rogue in 40 years.
Roguelite and roguelike especially tick me off because we already have a word that's perfectly serviceable. Randomized.
Yeah.
Procedurally generated.
Yeah. There's other words you could use.
Yes. So, yeah. Anyway, this game, as you can tell by the class list, doesn't take itself even remotely seriously. So you've got your Ranger Mans, your Fighter Mans, Wizard Mans, Banner Mans, Necromancer, Psychomancer, and then you've got Southern Gentlemans.
That's the correct one. That one, right there. Get that one.
It's a Berserker. Actually,
that one.
You know what? I am going to go Southern Gentlemans. Let's do that.
Is it a Berserker wearing a white suit?
Potentially, yes. So your abilities are all very dapperly themed until you start raging, in which case you become a bloodthirsty monster. But let's go with that. Southern Born, and books are valuable, but the book burner skill, as you can see, is very silly. Instead of actually reading a book, you just eat it.
Delicious.
Yes. Scrounger. Scrounger's always a good one.
The worms living in my copy of Lord of the Rings certainly agree that they're delicious.
That raises several questions.
I don't know. I don't know what stage of the silverfish's life likes to eat books, but there are lots of holes in my copy of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Alright, so here we are. So yeah, as what it is, it's one of these games where you move on a grid, and whenever you move, so does everything else. You take a turn, they take a turn, and so on. You just go around, basically delving further and further into a series of dungeons until you eventually drop dead. One of these losing is fun types of games.
So there's no win condition?
I'm not sure. I think there is eventually. Like once you clean out all the dungeons, there's a big bad at the end or something. But there is a bit of persistence between runs. Like you upgrade your academy by bringing back stuff.
Oh, while I'm thinking about it, for those in the northern hemisphere that have begun observing daylight savings or stopped observing daylight savings time in their area, you may be wondering why the heck the show's already started. That's because we start an hour. Yeah, we are on Fern time, and Fern doesn't adjust for daylight savings time.
Because so I am
when
smart.
So when we fall back, the show falls back.
It's just generally easier that way, since Ari and I have countries that go opposite directions at opposite ends of the year, so...
Yeah, it desynchronized opposite ends of the year, so it's always a month or two wiggle room there. It's a mess.
It's better to have the guy that's handling the tech actually know when the show is supposed to run.
So yeah. Yeah, it's an absolute pain. Like, finally managed to actually get back and join my D&D group again for the first time in ages, and yay, they've all jumped back an hour. Also got back in there to find that they've absolutely clowned up the story, but never mind.
As groups do, yes.
Well, it's D&D. If you're not clowning something up, you're playing the game wrong.
Honestly, if the story has managed to devolve into a clown fest, in some respects that gives me more confidence in the DM, because it means that he's not just telling his story, he's actually DMing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, all potential DMs out there. You ain't that good of a writer. Nobody's going to show up to hear your whole thing by yourself.
Yeah, if you were that great of a writer, you would have become a writer. And a writer doesn't necessarily make a good DM anyway, because your story might not be to the taste of your players.
Yeah. That even though we have clowned a few things up, the story is still on track and the story is still going. You actually do have a good DM. Not one of these DMs I've heard horror stories about where the moment the train comes off the tracks, they start rage quitting.
You don't see many DMs like that last for very long in general.
Yeah.
But I've seen them in the shop before that get upset when people get off the track, but I don't see them DMing for very long.
Yeah.
And they either go back to being a player or they disappear.
Yeah. Like, the biggest clown show at the moment is we have our barbarian in our group, who is he's most of the time he's a bear, or at least thinks he's a bear. But he's been possessed by this, or blessed rather, by this poison god, and can now cleanse poisons. And he does this by just wiping things on the face with a rag. This rag has never been washed, and he's used it on corpses. Several corpses.
Are you sure that it's going to continue? Well, so basically, you're developing a new type of magic item that cleanses poison in exchange for inflicting disease.
Yeah, I was about to say. I didn't hear anything about disease in this description.
There is no mention of disease. So we tried to get him to wash it this last session, and he just dipped it into into a bucket of water, which was just conveniently nearby.
So there's now a bucket of syphilis?
Yes. One which we ran away from very fast.
Did it start making noises and talking to you?
It went gloop.
That
Water
is,
should not go gloop.
Well, if you drop a goo gob of it from really high up in the air and it's got some viscosity because syphilis is in it, I mean,
to create the disease equivalent of the gelatinous cube.
Yeah, I hope that's not going to. I mean, if it does, that would be fantastic, actually. Oh. Huh. I didn't know this was actually an option in this game. So, because I was only using the mouse to play around with, I wasn't using the keyboard shortcuts like I usually do. What you can do is, if you're just using your keyboard shortcuts and you want to use a ranged weapon, you press F and then click on the thing. I did not know you could actually target yourself that way. And it pops up with a prompt asking if you want to shoot yourself in the face.
yes,
Right in the face.
always.
That hurt. I'm not sure what I was expecting.
That reminds me of how in Quest for Glory you used to be able to use the lockpick on your nose.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, sometimes you just got something up your nose and you just need to get it out.
Well, that was a very old game, so there were two possible outcomes. If you did it, say, at the beginning of the game, or without much skill in lockpicking, it would immediately, you would go too far and give yourself a cerebral hemorrhage and die instantly.
Give yourself a homemade lobotomy.
And if you did have a sufficient amount of lockpicking skill, it would just give you a text box saying, "Success, your nose is now open."
I see. Now, here's the best part about roguelike games. Unidentified scrolls and potions. Okay. This is bees, please. Okay. Yeah, this is one, like, Rogue did it, and then a bunch of other games have done it, where whenever you pick up a scroll or a potion, it's the unidentified. And in this case, it's identified by color or by red and blue.
It's been a convention in Western RPGs for, like, ever that I'm aware of. Was Rogue the first computer game that did it?
I'm not sure if it was the first, but it did use it.
Yeah. It always turns out to be you have to farm those things to get the best thing in the game, or they're totally worthless.
Like, I used to have a roguelike on the Master System called Dragon Crystal. And it was very possible, there was no way to actually identify potions and scrolls other than to use them. And there was one scroll that would immediately end your run. You would just die.
The self-destruct scroll?
Yep. I can't remember what it was actually called. I think it was like Thunderbolt. Cast it on you. That game was unnecessarily difficult. So yeah, it also wasn't very silly, but this game is extremely silly. So we'll dive straight into weeks, I guess. It's been another full work week. This is my actually first bit of downtime all week. It lasts longer than a couple of hours. But I did play a few video games. Did I finish Shadowbringers before last week's show?
You were either at the end or you had.
I think it was after the show you sent me a message saying that the credits rolled.
That's right.
Oh, right. Yeah. You were at Amrat.
I was at Amrat. So I went and did that, finished the main story, and I'm very happy with how that ended.
Good old Hades.
Hades.
Zoom.
Okay, now just figuring out how one of these abilities work. So yeah, it was a really great fight. Wasn't overly difficult, but I expect there's an extreme mode that will adjust that.
I doubt they will ever get to do it.
Yeah, I don't ever want to do Hades Extreme after I watch the video, but please, K, thanks.
Please, K, no.
He looks like one of the most formulated, pre-planned fights that ever could exist. And I just don't want to do any of the Savage content that's like that, which is most of it.
I put down so many ground markers that it looks like a discotheque.
Yeah, it's like the heals are. It is one of the signature fights for the healers having to pre-plan all their heals.
Eek.
It's like, screw that noise.
Yeah, I did enough of that in WoW, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I'll go back to Pug and Diamond Weapon for my hardest content.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for where they've managed to get their difficulty gradations, because I know that there very much is an audience for that type of content. There are people who just want to do the hardest version of the thing, and more power to them. If they've got the time to invest in getting good at the game in learning the encounter to the extent they can do that, that's great. But I don't have the time for that. However, the normal versions, for those of us who don't have quite so much free time to learn an encounter, they provide an adequate level of satisfying difficulty for you to drop in, be able to actually do a fight successfully, and then go back to whatever.
They've also made the normal modes where you can clearly tell that you're getting better at the fight and know that you're better than the mechanist that keeps dying to everything.
Resemble that remark.
I hope you don't resemble the remark like this one guy did. Holy crap. I'm still traumatized by how many times we res that boy.
Oh dear.
He had to have like 0% stats by the end of that.
Yeah. Is there a limit to how high that resurrection debuff will stack?
I hope so.
I think that that's like 75 or something. So you can be so weak that it's trivial if you get it enough times.
Right. So yeah, moved on to the post game, and yeah, you hit a wall pretty quick where it's going to say, you need eye level 430. But at this point, there's so many different ways to go and get that.
Yeah, it's late enough into the expansion. Crafted gear is, while expensive, still affordable.
Yep.
And then you have other options like you can run Eden, you can run the near raids, you can go get it with the nuts.
I'm sort of surprised that the prices are as high as they are, because I expected the prices to sort of crash as it we're getting to the point where poetics are going to get you better gear than the normal best crafted stuff, and there's not really any good reason to buy extremely good gear at this point in the expansion cycle. So I'm a little bit confused as to why everything is so expensive, unless there is just a large community of people who are rushing to try and engage the extreme content while it's still relevant.
It could be these people just want gear. There could be people that just want the gear that's good enough to get rolling in Endwalker, but not as good as the poetic stuff, and they think it'll just get them by, so they can skip having to buy the poetics. That audience might be bigger than we think.
I don't know. It just seems like the poetics are going to be gushing out of every orifice, because you're going to be able to stock poetics beforehand, and then you can stock all your other tomestones of types which will be convertible to poetics. Like, you're going to have a pretty solid reservoir going into the next expansion. I don't think they just disappear tomestones. I think that you're always able to trade them.
Yeah.
So if you just stock up on every type now, you can bank like 6,000 tomestones or whatever.
Yeah. So you can just grab the gear, keep it right on trucking.
Yeah. It's I mean, I got the Exarchic gear on my healer and my tank because I didn't want to be that guy.
Yep.
I have no problems whatsoever being that guy. It's like I'm well above the minimum item level, so if you're having trouble, it's because you're bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about as much Final Fantasy as I've had time to. I played around a little bit with my Dark Knight. The Dark Knight trainers, yeah. The guy's toony as all get out, okay?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say anything because it was spoilers.
Yeah, there's something going on there.
He's still sitting outside of the area he goes immediately after the first quest. Is where he's been sitting at ever since I unlocked the quest. I don't remember anything about him.
Yeah, he doesn't go much further than that.
Somewhere in the broom.
Yeah. Hey, it's the Warrior of Light. Let's ask you for help. Helping people help the weak. Rah! Just Really, dude?
I put on. We were talking about 2B's outfit before the show, and I put it on to take a look at it and forgot to turn it off before we went into this Praetorium. And now, anytime my character's on screen, it's just cleavage window.
Cleavage window. Is it the chest or is it the pants?
Both.
Oh, so
But-
you have the badonkadonk as well.
Oh yeah, if you see me jumping, yeah. But it's got a very open cleavage window
Yep.
that is very obvious.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm not even sure cleavage is the right way. It stops just before NSFW.
Aha. Incidentally, remember when that armor set was first released? The drama that came with it.
Was there drama?
A bit, yeah.
I remember something, but I don't remember any details about it.
You had a bunch of people getting up and being salty about an armor set that deliberately puffed out your character's ass. Most people just thought it was hilarious, though.
Oh right, yeah, I remember they had to remodel it or something
Yeah.
because it was. But I think it was actually it went the reverse direction. It didn't puff out your ass enough. It did not meet Yoko Tara's exacting standards.
The man is very particular about his posteriors.
He will in fact solicit pictures of posteriors of characters he's created. I will post a picture in the live show chat just so y'all have a better idea what this outfit does.
Yoko Taro is still an absolute madman.
Well, on the chest area anyway.
More upgrades for my academy.
Yeah, you can't see the inflated badonkadonk in the 2B outfit very much, unless you're playing a class that like spins on its hands a lot. But if I'm playing like my monk in my Al Dai dress with the 2B legs on, you can see the puffed out butt.
Yeah, it's very subtle for the most part.
I don't know if that's the particular wording that I would choose, but
Yeah, it's like Xenos though. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Xenos' butt in his first outfit is something special.
It is. Yeah.
He's like an Atlanta woman coming back carrying 12 bags of KFC for her 20 babies.
In her underpants. Yes.
we're going to be arrested.
Yes. So, yeah.
You can call me whatever you want. You know it's true if you've ever been to this area.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in his new outfit, but I did see one of his interim ones, and yeah, he's still got some junk in the trunk.
Just the boy was graced with a booty that just don't quit.
Oh, this has got all sorts of wrong places. I love it. Right. What else did I do? That's about it, honestly. I reached the end. I wanted to go and do, what was it, the next dungeon? Cosmos. Yeah. I only just got the gear score I need to do that before the show, so I'll do that after.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the gearing process was like prior to this sort of end-game state to get there. I presume that you would just run dungeons a lot for a lot of it, supplement it with a bit of crafted gear. I'm not really sure. It seems to me, at least, when I was going through that post-story content, that it was a little bit more demanding than I expected.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll hit the same point in Endwalker as soon as we get through that MSQ.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to have the time and energy to really hurry or anything like that.
Oh, there's no reason to.
I mean, I'm sure you will have.
Of...
I'm sure you will have exhausted all of the content before the end of the first week, but it's probably going to take me at least a month to finish the story, at least.
Yeah, I'll probably get through the story pretty quick, but I'm not gonna blitz the gearing part of it if it requires dungeon grinding.
Coming into the expansion at the start of the expansion rather than for a change, yeah, we don't need to rush the story anymore. Settle back and take it. I am disappointed though there was no Hildebrand. I want to know what happens next to our everyone's favourite idiot detective.
Good things come to those who wait. I mean, I it's always nice to be able to say count on there to be a new Hildebrand every expansion. However, rather than just checking off the box, I would prefer that they had a storyline that they thought they were really happy with.
Yeah. We're going to have the,
Like,
the
as
grand...
soon as something just becomes a box that you have to check off, the amount of love and enthusiasm that goes into it is not assured anymore.
Sad but true. So hopefully, like, we're getting the grand conclusion to the Hildebrand, Idle and Zodiac storyline. I'm hoping we get a grand conclusion to Hildebrand as well.
I think that it's quite likely that we will see Hildebrand return for Endwalker. I mean, the scope of that expansion just seems like it's going to be spectacular as it is. So there should be, amongst that massive content, room for us to reunite with the Inspector and his assistant.
There's no way they can resist not sending Hildebrand to the moon.
Again. He's already been on one moon.
Yeah, I mean, he's a veteran compared to everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, last time we saw him, he was sinking into the floor in one of Greg's interdimensional portals, so who knows where he'll end up.
Well, I haven't finished the Stormblood Hildebrand questline yet, but the way you phrased that made me think that he was going to do it like the Terminator.
I mean, kinda he does. Anyway. Other stuff, like, once you finish Shadowbringers, more than any other expansion, I felt like that there's just so much more stuff that's opened up. Like,
I think that partly that's because all of that stuff is already available to you now that you hit the end of that storyline.
Yeah.
And you're not being drawn on immediately to the next storyline to the same extent.
With all the others, it's like, okay, you've done the story, move on, keep going.
Plus, there's all the old expansions content backlogged that we have to do, and some of that stuff is required for some of the stuff in Shadowbringers postgame.
Which reminds me, actually, what is required reading here?
All the stuff that's related to PvE content could be considered required reading for MSQ stuff.
That's a lot of
like
stuff.
most of it's supplemental, but it's still related. Like you can infer what happens in the Coil of Bahamut series, for instance, from just the context of what people are saying. But seeing Louis Suave go Dragon Ball Z character is a different experience than being told Louis Suave was a really cool dude.
Yeah. There's a notable difference as to why Crystal Tower became by content, because it is very, very important.
Yeah, the Evilise series gives you a lot of backstory for for that region of the world and the way the Empire operates, even though most of the rest of the story is disconnected. The Omega series is disconnected, but gives you lore on how the dragons got here and what they're doing, and might set up some new stuff in the future. The Void Arc series looks like it could set up for stuff in the future, although I'm not entirely sure where they're going with any of that yet.
Might just be, at this point, explain where you get your spaceship from.
But yeah, it's all potentially required. We just don't know yet.
I want to go back and I want to do a lot of all that stuff at some point. Mostly it's just a matter of getting time to go. But I do also want to do the Eden Primals. Partly just because, I mean, Monster Truck Titan is one thing. But I didn't actually know what happened to Ramu in there, and Paul kindly posted a picture of it earlier. At that point, I think the Warrior of Light's just making crap up.
I mean, they give you a lore reason for it. I forget what it is, because my headcanon is the Warrior of Light is just a little touched in the head.
A little. Yeah. But, like, why is Ramu suddenly merged with Ixion? Ixion's not even in this game.
Yes, he is. What are you talking about?
Not as a primal.
It's sort of ambiguous as to whether or not he's a primal, because
Yeah.
remember, a primal isn't really a fixed category, which you should know by now, having finished Shadowbringers. It's just that's what we happen to call a particular type of application of creation magic.
Yes.
But Ixion can be fought whenever his fate pops up in the locks.
Oh, that's where he is it? Okay.
Yeah,
He's like Behemoth or Odin used to be.
Okay,
You can
I
get his
missed that
mount.
entirely.
yeah, you can get his mount. It's a big lightning unicorn, except way bigger than the one base Rama drops with a big spiky horn.
Which I
Only
actually got
appears at
yesterday.
certain times in the right weather in the locks.
I have to keep an eye then.
I was going to try and do him when Stormbringer was current content, but every time I tried, I was unable to actually deal sufficient contribution to the fight to get a grade.
Okay.
So, because of the sheer amount, a combination of the sheer amount of the lag and the fact that because I was maining a paladin, you have to be generating enough threat to be considered a contributor. That was how it used to be measured. But compared to the other tanks and the DPS, I was not really generating any threat to speak of.
Right. Let me actually have a look and see what his requirements are. While I do that, though. So yeah. Anyway, I actually did sit down and brain my way through extreme Ramu's fight. So I got him down on farm now. I only got one primal left to go, and that's Ifrit. Ifrit, I think, is just a DPS check, honestly. You want to be able to skip his second nail phase.
I can do him on my dancer, but anytime the nails pop up, I have to stop, slow down, kill the nails, don't get too many vulnerability stacks, and just take it slow and steady.
Yeah.
Like you can get 2 or 3 vulnerability stacks, let them fall off, kill the next nail, repeat. And I can do both nail phases.
Yeah, there's supposed to be 3 nail phases.
Oh yeah, however many there are.
Yeah, I think if you really want to do the third nail phase, like you can just power through the first 2. But if you do that, then you're not going to have enough health to do the third nail phase, which is compulsory.
As you get a bit more vitality on your gear, it won't be as bad.
Yeah, well, I've just had a massive gear influx, so yeah.
I haven't even attempted to do it, so I don't know what it's like. Maybe I'll take a shot at it. I'm not that enthused about doing the same primal over and over again for an indeterminately long period of time, because we're not all Aristeel who just get all the drops because we decide we want them. So
it took me 20 attempts to get them out. I did get his Ramu's triple triad card a few times though, which was nice because that's free golden saucer points.
It's also a pain in the butt to get legit from the guy. Like, I almost went and farmed drama for it. The guy was being so stingy with it.
Some of them are just absolutely tight with their cards. Even if the card is relatively crap, they'll still not give it up.
Yeah, it's just some dudes just got a really low drop rate.
For no reason.
At least it's not the Heian card. That has been the worst card I've encountered so far. Not even close. It's in the it's in the Doman Enclave. You can only get it from that dude.
Okay.
And his rule set is random and includes like one of the more obnoxious rules. I forget. It's random plus I think.
Oh no. Oh, this is Ollie. Alright. Let's see. Xian only pops up. Oh, hang on. He's got an invulnerability shield. Oh, that's inconvenient. I need to wait for this weather to become quick 11. And I need to go and farm Stygian ash, which you get through treasure hunts, in order to get him to remove his shield. That's going to take some work.
Yeah,
And you need to do it. I think you need to do it at minimum twice as well, or something like that.
Yeah.
and I'm here to tell you that ash. We've done quite a few treasure chests, and I've not gotten any.
Yeah, we did an awful lot of treasure chests today.
It's only from the Gargana skin ones.
It says it's from the gazelle skin as well.
And Gazelle skin, yeah, Time War Gazelle.
But yeah, we did a crap load of gazelle skin and didn't see any.
It's been a while since I've actually.
Well, me and Vol will talk more about that when we get to our weeks.
Oh.
Well, you will. I don't think I can talk for very much.
All right. Beyond that, that's basically been my week. Don't want to adult anymore. No, please stop. What was the original release date for? Next week?
Thanksgiving week, so 2 weeks from now.
Right. Yeah.
So it's been delayed to the second week in December.
I am still adding things to my Black Friday shopping list, which is starting to get.
Oh, I'm going out sometime this week to do Christmas shopping. Oh, don't even remind me. I got to do that.
I haven't done my Christmas shopping yet either. Now there's infants in the family.
Oh joy!
Instead of infants are fine so far. They don't care.
Just buy everyone socks. You'll be fine.
I could just buy everyone socks.
When I was little, I wanted to get one of my uncles one green sock and one red sock, and I wanted to get the other one blue sock and one red sock.
Okay.
I was like three.
Okay.
This was like the wonderful Christmas idea I had for a Christmas gift.
Nonsensical socks. I actually kind of like that. So dumb and so cute.
And so wholesome. Man, what happened to that kid?
I don't know. Yeah, as a kid you can do things like that and it is considered sweet and wholesome. If you do that as an adult, you're just considered a troll.
I got my aunt, the opossum's wife, a ginormous stuffed dog. And the opossum hated it. I knew he would hate it, because it just would take up space in his bedroom. And he went and he burned the stupid thing in his fire pit.
Oh, wow.
That's surprisingly aggressive.
A little bit extreme, maybe, perhaps?
Like, I was just going through CVS, and I saw this stupidly ginormous dog, like 5 feet tall stuffed dog for $25. I'm like, I know what my aunt's getting for Christmas.
I mean, did it go down well with her?
Oh, she loved it. She was quite mad when she found out the opossum burned it.
No.
He didn't just burn it either. He cut that thing into pieces so it would fit in the fire pit and then burned it.
That's a surprising amount of malevolence.
It really is.
90% of the reason I got that was to troll the opossum.
I mean, that is... Get him on run here. Nope, I got him. Okay, boss down. My character, however, is hemorrhaging blood. So, yeah, there we go. Okay.
Well, yes, that is normally what you hemorrhage.
Yeah, but this is like a fire hose hemorrhage.
So, like Kill Bill.
Yes.
Well, I mean, nowadays I often wonder if hemorrhaging blood is normal or if they have another word for the equivalent of hemorrhaging soy sauce. Or soy milk.
Why you do this? Alright, so that's basically been my week. The only other things I've really done is I've been continuing to kick along with the Sleepy Princess manga, which after its like first few chapters, which the anime is based on, does tighten up a lot, and it becomes increasingly cursed. Like
I see.
Yeah, there's one book where they're trying to recruit people to the demon army, so they decide to make a movie, which the princess insists on turning into a terrible B grade. The last chapter I just read was all about the virtues of slave labor, so yeah.
I mean, seems appropriate for the class you're playing.
I mean,
Sponsored by CCP.
oh no. I mean, yeah. I do like the anime. The manga, once it gets going, really, it becomes increasingly cursed. The princess becomes no less homicidal.
Man, there are so many great slavery jokes I can make right now.
Please don't.
But YouTube would get mad at me.
Considering in this case, it was the hostage princess making all the slave jokes.
I don't know what you're talking about. I think she's perfectly charming.
She is the height of royal decorum. Yeah. They do reach a point, it's actually not too long after the anime, where they just completely give up on trying to keep the princess in her cell. They don't even try to put her back anymore.
It doesn't really seem like an activity that's worth the effort.
Yeah. Hell, at this point, they're actually, if she goes out of the castle now, it's just goes, she'll be back. At what point do you go from hostage to unwilling house guest?
How unwilling is she really?
Not all that unwilling at this point.
I think it's more like unwelcome house guest at this point.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they even want her to stay around is probably in doubt.
Yeah.
But just how effective of a hostage has she proven to be?
I mean, the hero's an idiot, so that he probably should have been there to rescue her by now. But he has absolutely no sense of direction, and he's a complete moron. So, yeah. So yeah, there's that. I'm wondering what they're going to do with the anime for season 2. Because there's a whole bunch of new characters introduced, and some actual coherent plot lines start to develop. And then you get, very cursed contents later on, where the demon priest has, in his own mind, impure thoughts about the princess.
What qualifies as impure for him, though?
Well, he cares for her.
Holding hands.
Like, he's a really old guy.
So he's not like doesn't have the proper attitude towards the enemy royal.
Yes, like he cares for her kind of in a grandfatherly sort of way, and every time he catches himself thinking that way, he goes and abuses himself or something. But anywho, that's that. What have you two been doing?
I have had the week from hell at work. It's not great. Things went exactly as I predicted last week, in that the Meatworks clients got all fired up, and so we got sent almost to double the amount of work that we normally would have. We did not receive to double the number of staff, so it just meant that we had to work excessively hard, to the point where my back was absolutely killing me. But yeah, so I didn't really have much time to do anything else because it was so exhausting. There's not really much for me to comment on, even if I had the energy to do so. But since my voice does not seem to really want to support me speaking at any great length, there's not really a great deal to say. I suppose I spent a little bit of time rewatching Demon Slayer because it's cool. That's the only reason I really had. And because the season sucks. So
yeah, not seeing anything particularly interesting in this current season.
Any time the season sucks, I usually just rewatch something that I haven't seen in a while that I thought was cool. And I wanted to try out Aristeel's Preferred Honest Bobs, and honestly, it hasn't had any problems to speak of. So there's not really a good reason to use the complete garbage service provided by the official channels.
Yeah,
I mean, I subscribed, and unlike Aristeel, I didn't have an ongoing subscription that I didn't pay for some reason.
It's not my fault. It's their own fault for
That's
being
their own fault.
retarded about it.
Yeah, that's their crappy back-end coding that did.
But all I'm meaning to say is that I tried paying for the service and I got crap service.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just not that interested in playing ball anymore because
I actually fired up the Funimation as is now app. I don't have a current Funimation subscription, and it was very nearly impossible to actually watch something. I got spammed the same ad for the new Battlefield game like 3 times in a row.
Believe me, the PS4 app is even worse. Like, it's radically unstable and doesn't seem to... Well, you just don't seem to end up going to the place you think you're going whenever you select something.
I swear that that app they pushed out the door like 5 years ago and never touched it again.
Oh, the app they had before their current one was much better, is the funnier part.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Like here's somebody with the Ixion mount, Fern.
Oh, you found someone? Oh,
yeah, he's just hanging out here in Idleshire. I'll post a picture for you.
Yep.
It's in live show chat when it loads.
But yeah, so I'm enjoying that. It's a great series. It might not do anything particularly out of the box, but it's very entertaining and lavishly animated, of course. But yeah, so Final Fantasy wise, since I've completed most of the content that is on the agenda to accomplish in a sort of meaningfully directed sense, I'm basically cleaning up loose ends at this point, which mostly involves crafting and gathering disciplines. I've made a reasonable amount of progress on them, given the tiny sliver of time that I have to do so. Multiple times I've fallen into the trap of attempting to advance through a crafting quest chain by crafting things, and this seems to be an apocalyptically bad idea at almost every turn.
Not the one about the rings, is it?
I don't know
Just
what you're talking about.
Any of them that are more than like a basic item or a material.
Yeah, there's one quest in particular in, I believe, the goldsmithing quest line, where they want you to make a handful of gold rings. But you've got the gold rings, which most people will just sit down and start making like 12 of them. But if you scroll down, there's a quest item, which is 12 gold rings.
Oh, there's none of those anymore. That's not on the quest.
Oh, thank goodness they fixed that one.
The only big money bear I ran into was the what do they call? Music boxes. Also for goldsmithing. But you have to make a silver and gold music box at the very end.
Right.
Of the Heavensward chain, and these are like 70k a piece. Everything else was below 30k.
Is that in materials or in profit or potential sale price?
No. Screw trying to get this thing legit and get any of the materials for it. It's all on time nodes and requires 1 million materials from all over the place. No, screw that. You're not going to make these. You're just going to find somebody else that has way too much free time and can make these stupid things for you, and go buy them off the auction house.
Right.
Yeah, that is definitely the way to go. Like, I'd put a lot of these quests on the back burner, and so I'm trying to catch up with them now. And I was trying to do the carpenter one yesterday, and they're like, "Oh, make a bow," and so I'm like, "Okay, what does this require?" And I spooled out all the requirements, and it's like there's like 12 different items from all over the map, several of which are on timed nodes, and putting it together, it probably took me over an hour to actually craft the sodding thing.
Yeah. Rule of thumb when I was doing crafting, if it requires a time node anywhere, the answer is no.
Yeah, it slows you down too much. And so yeah, for the rest of the quest, I just bought everything that I needed, except for when all it required was to just craft lumber or something like that. Because it's you just tap a tree a few times and then you've got what you need. But yeah, generally speaking, it's not worth the effort because they went absolutely hog wild in from Heavensward onward and the requirements to craft any given thing. Like I said, that bow that they asked me to craft was just sort of like a low level bow. Like, what level was it? Holy Cedar composite bow. So that's a level 52 bow. So it's leveling gear. Not important in any way. But it spins out to about like a mountain of different components.
You got to get like the holy water to make the cedar logs, holy cedar logs, and you got to turn those into holy cedar lumber, and then you got to. Oh yeah, I remember that stupid thing. Screw that noise.
Yeah, I did it. I did the whole thing from base ingredients all the way to the top, and it took me forever to do it. It was not worth it. Just not worth the effort. So, yeah, be told it is usually better to just buy it, because if I looked at the price and I balked initially because it's like 30,000 gil for a quest item. Is that really necessary? I do have the crafting ability. Surely I can just craft it. I don't know how much it would have cost for me to buy the ingredients. Probably more than that. But the reality is, if I had gone out, found a nice looking grove of trees, and just spent 10 minutes whacking them, I would have brought in more than 30,000 gil worth of materials, rather than spending an hour getting specific materials and crafting the sorting thing. So, yeah, just don't ever, not worth it.
If you really need money, just wait till you're level 80 culinarian and go turning coffee biscuits.
Yeah, well, that's not going to work indefinitely. Whereas gathering useful materials will work indefinitely for as long as people have to level through things. So, yeah, I don't actually know that the coffee biscuit thing is really that profitable. I think people do it because it's easy, not because it's actually profitable. Like, if you are monitoring commodity prices, let's say that you are willing to monitor the commodity prices using, third-party data scraping, which is the way most people do it, it's probably easy to make 10 or 100 times as much gil as the coffee biscuits will net you in the same amount of time. So if what you really, really, really want to do is make money, you'll find a way to do it. But if all you want to do is make sodding kudzu cloth, you're going to make a mountain of cash.
Yeah.
Because you said it's a pain in the butt to do it yourself, and so if you can buy it, you're going to buy it.
Yeah, because you got to go deep sea diving for one of the materials, and you got to go all the way over to the fringes for the other one, and that's all the materials it requires. It's just some kudzu and some, I think, ruby cotton, or the cotton balls that make the ruby cotton cloth, and that's how you make kudzu thread. And you would think, oh, that's not too bad, but if you go on the auction house and you check the prices on it, it's always astronomically high.
Because it's in demand for the firmament.
Yeah. Let's see. How much is kudzu thread going for? Oh, I gotta scroll through all the kudzu bullcrap.
And it's worth keeping in mind as well that we've got a massive surge of lobies coming through the game right now. And over the course of the next few months, they're all going to be rolling up to the end of the first drop of Endwalker content, and then be looking back at the things that they skipped as they were rushing through the main story and the leveling process in order to participate in Endwalker's launch. And they'll be looking at things like crafting and like, well, how can I get through here quickly? Oh, there's this thing called the firmament. All of the things that are the regular gatherables not found in the diadem that are used in the firmament are going to suddenly become very, very hot commodities.
Yeah, a kudzu thread is still 1,000 gil a pop per thread.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, even when coffee biscuits are gone, there's still going to be ways to make a lot of dosh if you're willing to invest the time in doing it. It's generally better for people to try and make money off of the things that they actually don't mind doing, rather than just to bullheadedly try and proceed through the crafting quests without buying things.
It is mostly because I hated that you get leave allowances and they're going to eventually cap.
My leave allowances have been capped literally for years. I don't care.
I used them to get through crafting, and it bugged me that they were accruing again. I'm like, oh, I can accrue them for Endwalker. I'm not going to need to accrue them for Endwalker. And it just was bugging me. So that's why I did the coffee biscuit spurred more than anything last week.
Yeah, so I don't really have much else to talk about. My throat's starting to get a bit tired, but yeah, so I didn't do much this week. It was tiring. Next week will also be tiring. I don't know when this is going to stop, because the next person down the totem pole of authority and expertise from me just resigned, and so all of that work will drop onto my shoulders and I will die. So yeah, I'm not really sure what is happening going forward, I know that I'm going to have no Christmas holiday now. I'm just going to have to work non-stop. And I'm not looking forward to it. Everything sucks right now. That's the short version.
That is some serious level suck.
Ugh. So, yeah, you don't have enough pull at work by now. If you're the last person that can do it, you can't strong arm them into Christmas holiday or I walk.
No, because they are looking to fire me.
Oh,
I'm not
right.
vaccinated. I'm not vaccinated, and they're willing to fire people over that. They've been putting out feelers to see how much backlash they'll get if they do it. But historically, the general manager has just, after doing that, he always just goes ahead and does whatever he wants anyway. So, yeah, maybe I'll get an extremely long holiday for being fired and ending up on social welfare because nobody will employ someone who hasn't had the Fauci ouchie.
Oh man, that sucks.
Plus side, it will get you out of that crappy job.
It will. It will.
Not necessarily the way you want to go out, but yeah.
Well, when he's the last one alive in the country that can be a somebody in his field, you know, things might look up for him then.
Well, the thing is that there's an awful lot of people who don't really agree with the whole vaccination thing. Even people who are vaccinated, they have now turned on the government because, you know, government said, "Oh, you'll get your 2 jabs and then it'll all be over," and they stupidly believed the government. But while New Zealanders are very stupid when it comes to the government and will always do what the government says without thinking, they only do that one time on any given topic. They will do it on every topic, but they will only do it once. So the government has used up their shot on vaccines now, and when they tell people, "Oh no, actually you need to get a booster every 6 months for the rest of your life," people suddenly have decided to join the opposite side of the argument. That's what's manifestly happening. The media have tried to keep it quiet, but it's not very successful when the highways are completely clogged up with people protest driving around the city.
Protest driving.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what they do. They will pick a lane, and then they'll gridlock an entire city, just driving slowly.
Okay.
That's how protests are done in cities in New Zealand. I mean, if you march around the city, nobody gives a toss. So you've got to destroy the arteries of the city, and they always make sure that there's a lane available for emergency services and for anybody who's in a real big hurry. But they're gonna have to make do with one lane.
Yeah, I mean, I encourage all forms of anti-government behavior with the current state of the world. Go for it, anybody. You have my tacit support and endorsement as much as I can give you.
Could you kindly not needle the FBI agent that's sitting, please?
No. He's free to come to my house and have a talk with me if he wants. He's not going to like how the conversation ends, though.
Go to your house. That's fine. Just don't come to mine.
Oh, you got the Australian Gestapo. Whatever y'all's local cops are doing these days.
Not much, actually.
The thing is, Fern's in a small inland town. They've probably got like 4 cops total.
No, we've actually got about a fairly decent cop presence, but they're all pretty good people. So
Yeah,
well, you don't last long as a cop in a small community if you aren't accommodating.
very true. We do get the occasional ones who come straight out of the academy and they just want to throw their weight around, and they either smarten up or they're just kind of gently shuffled along.
Yeah. Alrighty. I guess we can use the end of all's week as a segue and go into my week a little bit. I unfortunately don't have much to talk about either. It was a pretty busy week at work, and the time I did spend in Final Fantasy XIV when I was old people watching was spent with my last level up goal, getting all of my classes to level 30 for some last ditch armory chest clean out. And
Right.
that was successful. Got that done. And that was really all that happened. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch all the class stories when I finally do pick up each individual class and go through it, because I was so tired during some of them that I just couldn't pay attention and would find myself after the quest going, "What just happened?"
To be fair, there's a couple of them that even if you do watch the class quest, you'll still ask what just happened.
Yeah, I was very tired when I did them. So there was that, and the only group content I did this afternoon with Vol and Abo, where we went and me and Abo did a few things. He's leveling Conjurer, so I'm taking my Pugilist along with him.
Nice.
Or Monk now, I guess.
How far along are you?
38.
Excellent.
So, just whatever the roulettes get us when he's on. I'm not going on it super hard.
Yep.
And then after that, me, Vol, and Abo did treasure maps, and we've done a few treasure maps before, but this week, me and Abo didn't have time to. Well, I wasn't home. I was busy working, so we didn't have time to sit down and do the weekly treasure map or the daily treasure map hunts we would do. So we had just a stockpile of maps. Like, I had 3, and I'm just laying around. One in my saddlebag, and one on each of my retainers. So we had a ton of Gazellskin maps to go through. I think we wound up going through, at the end of it, we went through like 7 or 8 normal maps. And we got 3 portals. I think it was 3 normal portals. And the first portal we got was the roulette one, where we press a button and there's a big roulette wheel with different icons around the arena, and whatever it lands on, it summons a boss and you fight it. Okay. And this was fun. We got further in this one than I've ever gotten before. We got to spin 4 of 5, because there's also eject you from the dungeon nodes on the roulette that can end your run early, and are usually what ends your run. So we spun the wheel, and we got the big red diamond mega summon boss twice. And it was a different one each time. And one of them, the stupid elephant, had the most obnoxious tank buster in the world, and that there is no cast bar. There is no way to tell when he's doing it. He's just gonna womp the tank for half of his health.
Oh, surprise!
Yeah, it's just, and this seemed to be a theme with some of the bosses here, where their tank buster would just kind of happen, and you just had to respond to it. So there was no preemptive cooldowns on Vol's part, because he was tanking it and I was healing it and Abo was DPSing it. These are supposed to be done with 8 people at level 70 to make them, the equivalent of normal mode. But even back at level 70, people were 3-manning them. And we did manage to 3-man it successfully up until we got kicked out. And then the next treasure map portal we got was to the Canals. Now, the Canals, we got incredibly lucky in one sense. Mostly because I was the one opening the doors. And that the way the canals work, for the normal canals, is you go down a water pipe, and you arrive in a circular room with a treasure chest in the middle, and you try to open the treasure chest, and a bunch of enemies come flying out of the area above, and you have to kill them all. And sometimes there's a mini-boss, or there's a whole bunch of little dudes that will come out in waves. It depends on what that particular thing is feeling. And after that, you open the treasure chest, you get your loot, and then you're presented with 2 doors, one on the left and one on the right. One of these boots you out of the dungeon. The other one takes you further into the dungeon. We made it all the way to floor 7, which is the end of the dungeon.
You got kicked out of the last door?
No. We beat it.
Oh, okay, good.
So we beat the last boss. Now, this is practically unheard of. This never happens. And along the way, we got 2 thief maps, which open super special portals to the hidden canals, which are like the normal canals, but everything's jacked up in difficulty a little bit. And there are 3 doors to pick from instead of 2. Now, from what I could tell, it seems like the odds are 2-1 that you're going to get thrown out based on just the ratio of times we got kicked out. And there ain't a whole lot of information on these treasure map dungeons because of the RNG nature of them and the fact that Final Fantasy players just aren't as autistic as WoW players when it comes to documenting this crap.
Yep.
So we don't really know, but we got 2 of those, and we went in there and we only made it to the second room in both of those, and then we got immediately booted out. So we got 2 treasure chests from each of those, and each of us made out with a ton of cash worth of stuff, like at least 1 million gil worth of garbage from in there, in these treasure romps. Like, I got a lamp that sells for like around 1 to 2 million. Vol got it's not chinchilla. That's what it's not. What was the pet? He got the capybara pet that sells for like 1 million. You got Ibu, who picked up all kinds of crafting materials that sell from like 1.2 or 120,000 to like 400,000. So we all made out like bandits in this, and it was fun.
This is just saying, like, if you want money, you go in there.
Yeah, I mean, you need a small group of friends to do it with, and you know, it helped that we had days of maps stockpiled.
Yeah.
Before we did it. So, but this seems like the way to go with it if you want to get a weekly burst of gil, is just to stockpile your maps throughout the week, and then head on out with a small group of friends and go do the treasure maps. So I will likely keep the map stockpiled again, and just keep 3 saved at all times, because you can keep 3 banked, 1 on each retainer, because they're unique, so you can't all have them on your character or on one retainer. You can't bank them forever. You're limited by your number of retainers, plus your Chocobo saddlebag, plus your war inventory, so you can have 4 normally if you're not paying for extra retainers.
Can you open one and then pick up another?
I do not know. I think Abo said he couldn't, but I don't remember.
Experiment.
But yeah, that was pretty much all the group content we did. Did we talk about Void Ark?
No, because it was a complete clown fiesta, and there's no way you wouldn't have talked about that.
Yeah. So I guess we can talk about Void Ark a little bit. I have to pull it up.
Not really much to talk about for the first 2 as far as our experience went, but the third one was something special.
Yeah, everybody dying and getting hit by everything. Let me pull up the raids so that I can remember this travesty that was Dunscaith. Alright, so the first 2 dungeons really aren't anything to write home about. You can probably do them blind, and you'll be fine. And other than... yeah, nothing aside from the haircut boss really was whomping people in the groups. Yeah, her hair has a big giant tentacle blade on it. And you need to not be on the side the tentacle blade is on, or you get whapped.
Fair enough.
A lot of people got whapped. I think I got whapped once too. I didn't die, but I got whapped. But a lot of other people kept getting whapped and standing in other mechanics, and that was fun. But she wasn't that bad. Dunscaith, the last of the Void Ark raids, though, was a total clown show. Notably, the first boss.
I'm not sure if there was anyone in the group who didn't die.
Yeah. So I died to something. It wasn't falling off, but I died to something at least once. So I think everybody in our group did die. In fact, I think everybody in the raid died at least once on this boss. If not, it was dang close. So this boss has a bunch of AoE type mechanics. They don't matter. The ones that are important are he will put an ice block up on the edge of the arena, and then you have to go run up to him and point yourself such that he will kick you from his position into the ice block to stop you from getting knocked off the edge of the airship. I have not seen so many just a whole clown car of people just go right over the edge before. In any knockback mechanic ever in my history of playing this game.
That's talent.
Like it was worthy of that montage video that you sent me before of all the failures in Shadowbringers. The other mechanic you have to that's of note is throughout the fight he has a soft enrage mechanic where he will periodically mark he'll divide the platform into eight or 10 sections, something like that are all squares. And you can run freely between them and even step in the spots he's marked. But as time goes on, he will mark more squares. And occasionally, he will cast death on these squares that insta-kills anybody in the square.
Sounds bad.
Yes, that's very bad. And eventually, you run out of squares. And the way you know our DPS was really bad is we got down to one square. So, he would just, he'd fill up 1 or 2 squares, and then more people would die to stupid mechanics, or get knocked off, or stand in the death, and then more squares would get zoned off, and we would have to res people, and the cycle would just repeat. And we barely got him.
At least you got him.
Yeah,
he was the biggest one-shot clown show of the whole dungeon.
That's really the thing, is that everything he does kills you, pretty much. Like, his vacuum ability, if you get hit, it kills you. The wind thing, if you're not positioned correctly in advance, it kills you. His death spells, they kill you. Like there's no surviving this due to your vitality. You just die every time you get hit by something.
Yeah, everything is lethal on this boss. He's just as a consequence, he is just a giant clown show. Okay, and the next one was... Oh, what were you? Oh, the next one wasn't that bad, I don't think. It was the one with the one that spawns the Atomos of certain colors, and the donuts or the balls.
Oh, Ozma.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a fun variation on a fight.
Yeah. After the last boss, he's less memorable because he wasn't as big of a clown show, but his mechanic was interesting at least. Where he would oh wait, that's Ozma's the one in the previous dungeon.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, Ozma the
we did them all in one stretch, so
yeah, it was another big burst. So the last dungeon, Ozma's really the only boss worth noting in that one, aside from the haircut boss in Weeping City. So I guess we can double back and talk about Ozma. Ozma is weird in that you fight him on a circular platform that seems to be a running theme. There will always be one boss on a circular platform in 24-man raids post Heavensward. And he's this expansion's one. And the groups have to spread out into a pre-designated zone around him and take up their area. And depending on what shapes Ozma flashes, you have to position yourself close to Ozma on a little nub that puts you really deep into his hitbox, or you have to get away from that nub and the line directly in front of it and spread out around the edge. And I forget which is which, if it's square or triangle, hit square. But each shape corresponds to you need to stand in a certain spot, because he's going to AoE the other spots. So the trick here comes that Ozma is a giant sphere of reflecting... He's a big mirror looking thing. And he's very hard to tell what shape he's turning into, if you ain't seen it before. Eventually, I realized that he does the GameCube boot up when it's square, and if whatever the heck he does that isn't the GameCube boot up, that's triangle.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So he turns into you know how the G for the GameCube would unfold with the square like rolling around on the Nintendo GameCube?
Yeah.
I never had a GameCube.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, every time you booted the console, it would have a cube roll across the screen in 3D to show off the 3D effects that would form the logo for a G for GameCube as it spooled out. And whenever
I think I can like a cube net.
Kind of. And yeah, every time Ozma would do something similar to the GameCube thing, he would turn into a square. And that's just the only way I could remember it, because he's an abstract blob.
Very shiny one.
Yeah, very shiny one. Other than that, his mechanics are cool. It's unfortunate that he's at a position in his expansion where you will outgear it. He's not the last raid of the expansion where you could still run into problems with item levels, because you're going to sync to the highest item level for that expansion. So you just radically outgear this guy, because I feel like he would have a lot of mechanics that are a lot of fun if they went on for longer. He has one where he keeps putting more and more targeted AoEs on party members and in each raid, and you have to evenly space them out to stop the ads from getting too close to each other that they spawn. And I feel like that could be a lot of fun if the DPS wasn't quite so cranked from your gear getting jacked and your item level being through the roof. He's got a inner world phase that has a mini version of the stand on the pads to make the Atomos not invulnerable from Labyrinth of the Ancients. Except this time the people on the pad can actually do DPS, so there's no reason for somebody not to be standing on the pad.
They made those lanes very noticeably shorter.
Yeah. So, and you can easily look over and see if the other groups still need you on their pad or not. And it has a big doomsday countdown during that phase with a whole lot of stuff to interrupt you potentially and stop you from doing DPS, but unfortunately you just outscale it at this point, so we didn't get to experience the hectic nature of that version of the fight. And just we got back outside and kept whacking on the ball. So that's the marble. He's a cool boss. I just really wish that they had saved him for the last boss, the last dungeon. Maybe swapped him with the Atomos boss that I was about to talk about, with the munchies that eats the balls or the donuts, because he is a real letdown boss in the last dungeon. I think we still had people clown it up because we had a really special group. You know, it seems like every time we do these raid vomits or these we always seem to have one group for one or two of the runs that is just, they're really special. Real short bus type people. And that was our whole Unscathed group. How much time did we spend rezzing in this place? I feel like it was a lot.
I know that I emptied my mana about out many times.
Yeah, there was not a fight we weren't spam rezzing. Like, there was putting hots on people. I think Aspected Helios and Medica 2 did most of our healing while we spent the rest of our mana bar rezzing. Because people were just dying left and right all in this dungeon. And the Atomos boss, what's his name? Ferdiad Hollow, is real simple on once you see it. He's one of those ones where if you explain it, it sounds really complicated, but it's really easy to tell. There will be multiple Atomos of different colors that pop up on the arena. And there will be sometimes multiple icons that appear on the map. What Miztech calls donut things that are interlocked rings that spin around, and a ball. And depending on what color Atomos eats what symbol on the map, because it'll just suck it in and nom it, and you can't kill it or stop it, will determine what all the other Atomos of that color are going to do. So if it eats a ball, all the other Atomos of that color are going to do a point-blank melee AoE, and if it eats the donut-looking things, it's going to do a donut AoE. Now, seeing this when you're there makes it click real fast, unless you're the people in our group, who seem to get hit by everything. But thankfully, nothing this boss has is too terribly lethal, so even though they were getting whomped by this stuff, I don't remember us dying a whole lot on this boss.
It was not that a whole lot of people died. It was more like one or two people died over and over and over again.
Yeah. So this boss wasn't that bad. Next was Skahak. Or Skathik, as Miztech likes to call her.
Skahak.
Yeah. I get it. Celtic names are weird. But She she's an interesting boss in that her telegraph doesn't make a lick of sense for when she's about to do her arm whap that's going to hit in diagonal points across in front and behind her, where I had to stop and take a picture of the video to see the telegraph and the zones it lit up to get an idea for what it means when she raises her hands in the air, because it just is hard to tell.
I didn't have any difficulty with it at all. It seemed obvious to me. I think it might just be a mindset thing.
Maybe. But I didn't get whacked by that particular mechanic. And other than that, I don't remember anything about her fight. She was real simple, other than her hands and her quick telegraphs. She has a lot of quick telegraphs that you gotta look at her animations to determine what she's gonna do, but nothing was particularly bad with her. A lot of people died, but that's to be expected with the group we had. But nothing out of the ordinary was in her boss fight to make her particularly interesting.
I think that's just Alliance raids in general. Like, even the current content one, our experience is that people die all the time.
Yeah. So, and then we had Diablos. And Diablos has a ton of mechanics. And the big one that kept catching everybody was the look away mechanic, I noticed.
Usually does.
He has a look away mechanic that puts you to sleep. And then does an AoE. Or does he do the AoE right away? I can't remember. Anyway. But the other thing is he'll spawn death gates all over the place, and people have to go into them to fight the mob. And I remember worrying that not enough people were in the hole to go fight the mob inside the life gate. No, it's the life gate you gotta go in, right? I can't remember. It's been a week, and I only did the fight once. But yeah, the big scary thing about Diablos is just the raw amount of damage he outputs in Phase 2 anyway, where it got really hectic really fast, spamming as many heals as you could on everybody, because he takes reduced damage, but he puts a dot on himself, and he guarantees every hit he's going to do is going to be a crit. Or something nuts like that for the entirety of his last phase. So you have every single thing he does critting, and you have the raid not able to accelerate this phase very much, but he will eventually just kill himself.
Okay.
So you still have to do DPS to him. There's a reason explained somewhere. But this is really heal intensive, and I'm lots of panic healing going on in that phase, but nothing really that stands out as a mechanic worth talking about. He wasn't the first boss with everything was insta-death. It was just stuff hits really, really hard. And if you get whacked by multiple things, you will die, but it wasn't any one thing will kill you. It didn't seem like, anyway. Nothing in him couldn't be offset by healers just being on the ball and overhealing like crazy. So yeah, that's the raid we did. So not as interesting as the other ones, but it came out earlier, and they hadn't had time to. Well, they were still figuring out what they really wanted to do with the 24-man raid stuff. So, but for what it was and the time it came out, I thought it was okay. I wouldn't mind getting it in the roulette, but it's not content I would actively seek out and be happy to do again. It's not like, the near raids. If I see them pop up in the roulette for some reason, I'll be like, oh, cool, near. So, yeah. Do you have any thoughts why your voice will still hold out on him?
Not really. I thought it was overall a good experience. Well, particularly the last one was, since I don't heal very much, and I went into it as a healer, it was one of the more intense healing experiences that I've had.
Yeah. My Helios button got a workout on the last phase of Diablos.
Yeah, I did an awful lot of healing there, and an awful lot of rezzing as well.
Yeah. That's 24-man raids.
Uh-huh. Even during the Crystal Tower, there's always someone who'll circus it up.
Yeah, usually in Crystal Tower, I am lazy enough if I roll Crystal Tower in the roulette that I just don't care about the guy that just fell over.
I admit, I wasn't really paying attention in my tower this morning. I wasn't paying attention to what Behemoth was.
Oh, you got Meteor done?
I got Meteor.
Yeah. We had a group not go stand on the button once and Pythagoras, whatever his name is, and wipe the entire raid.
The boss with the wrong name.
Yeah, the one whose name's changed like 3 times.
Yeah,
Because his original name was Titan.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah. So yeah. Interesting. So far, I think my favorite 24-man raid is the Nier raids. It's not even close. Even without my attachment to the Nier franchise.
Yeah, I think I liked that one the most as well. I don't know if I like it because of its intrinsic qualities necessarily, or if it's just because it's such a nice break with the Final Fantasy aesthetic to have something very, very different in there. But I did enjoy it very much, and I think of the ones that we did, I enjoy it the most. I think that the Rabanesta raid has the nicest environs. Like that whole underneath the city thing is really, really cool zone. You know, if you ever got to see any more of it, but you don't. But
Because in the cutscene.
But I think it's a very cool environment, and I wish that they had an opportunity to do more with it. But I think as an overall raid experience, I like the Nier ones the best, and they've got my favorite alliance fights in them as well. I think my favorite fight in all of the alliance raids that we've done is probably the Red Girl fight. I know it's very gimmicky, but I like it a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in that fight, and it's just a lot of fun to do.
It's great music too.
Yep. All the Nier music is great. So I think I have one of the songs stuck in my my apartment right now. So yeah, that's the 24-man raids. I think we've got them all now, and we've done most of the 8-man turn raids. All we have left is Alexander, and for the trials, we've done the petting zoo. We've done we've done sneezes, and we've done Omega. Oh no, that's wasn't talking about trials. Sneezing threw my brain out on a whack. So we've done the petting zoo. We've done Children of Welt, whatever it's called. We have not done the Heavensward one, the Warring Triad, and I don't think there's an equivalent for A Realm Reborn for the expansion trials.
No, the equivalent is Prey Return to the Waking Sands.
Yeah. Like these primals again.
Yeah, so we're pretty close to have at least done all of the in-game story content there is to do. And the story for the Void Ark series, I don't think there's anything really to write home about with it. I'm glad I did it with people there, so I could so that color commentary could go on. It was. I found the entire story really, really boring. But yeah, that's where we're at with Final Fantasy.
That's it for our weeks. Then we should probably take a break.
Yep. Here's some music, folks. We will be right back. And we're back.
Yes, it did. So, as you saw before the break, I'm on my second character now. Because that's how roguelike games work.
Indeed.
Roguelike fans wouldn't have it any other way, I'm sure.
Yeah, if a game will not just decide completely arbitrarily to delete your character on you, then yeah.
iPhone just dropped for me. After you talked about Ifrit earlier, I decided to nobble Ifrit a few times in a row to finish off my Wondrous Tales, and I got the mount.
Nice. Now we just got to farm him for Nightmare.
Any of them can drop the nightmare.
Is it all of them, or is it just Ifrit, Garuda, and Titan?
Might just be those three, but you don't have to do it for it.
You just go do Garuda. Garuda's easier.
Or Titan, either one. Anyway, we have an email we need to get to.
He does, and it comes from a good buddy, Cerathus. And he said, keeping in line with your Final Fantasy XIV progress updates, here are mine. I got the final rank of the resistance weapon. Actually, I did this week ago.
Oh my goodness.
You're crazy, but yeah, grads.
I mean, if you actually work at it over the amount of time that it's been available, it's not actually as bad as all of that.
Yeah, I've still got my Eureka weapon. I believe the second tier gun model is extremely good. I think that was that.
I'm never gonna get there.
Yeah, but the problem is it involves Eureka.
Yeah, like unless I have people with me to dedicate a huge amount of time to it, I just don't think I can do it solo. I don't have the patience. There's too many other things that I want to do. If I was already finished everything else, that would be a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah, Abos tried to drag me back into Eureka, and I've just been like, yeah, not right now.
It's not that I dislike grindy content, because I actually kind of enjoy grindy content. It's very relaxing when I don't have to think about anything and I don't have to, perform for anybody else. Like then that's fine with me. But at the moment, because there's so many other things on the agenda that I need to accomplish, it's just at any time spent in Eureka, I feel like I'm wasting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's painful to go through Eureka for me in general. I'm not sure why in particular its grind hurts so much, but I might just need to be in a grindy mindset to go into it, and I just ain't in one right now.
Like, I've gotten in there in the party before. Once you get into the groove of it, you can really make some solid progress on it. Gotta be. I think I just got to get in the right mindset to do that sort of content. Anywho, where was I? Oh yeah, here we are. Actually, I did this weeks ago and forgot to include it in my. And oh boy, the grind. Not going to do that again. My gunbreaker has a glowy gun, but everyone else will have to make do with whatever I find. What a glowy gun it is. Gun sword. In other news, I have finished Ash's Afterglow, and it was awesome. While the second hub was decidedly more linear than the first, from map layout's perspective, the central conflict can be solved in different ways, by siding with the raiders. Special mention goes to the array map between two hubs. Second secret level. I have not played.
Is he talking about a Doom mod?
I believe it is.
Anytime he's talking about a game whose name I don't recognize, I assume it's a Doom mod.
I don't think this is a Doom mod because he specifically mentions Doom mods next.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And
although typing in Ash's Afterglow, the next two words are Doom mod in DuckDuckGo.
Well, I mean, if it's a TC, then it might not count as a mod.
Maybe.
It is a TC.
Super mod.
Yeah, so it's a Doom TC.
Yeah. Speaking of on. And of course, more Doom, but with a twist. A crossover with Blood resulted in Bloom, taking levels from both games and mashing together in a truly spectacular and very non-Euclidean fashion to create a mind-bending experience. How mind-bending can you get on the Doom engine?
Pretty mind-bending. If you've done some of those really obtusely designed Final Doom levels, then you know that even with the very basics available to the engine, you can still accomplish some pretty disturbing crap.
Where you turn left 3 times and somehow are walking upwards.
Well, maybe not quite like that, but
Yeah. Although I have played games that is the case. Enemies also got a similar treatment, creating unholy dicks like Arco Gargoyle or Rat Demon. Arco Gargoyle is.
the Gargoyle Caco Demon.
Yes. That sounds horrible. As usual.
I'm imagining it as a tiny little thing with stubby legs.
A spherical thing with tiny little wings. Yeah, it's a ball with an eyeball and a big mouth. Off eyeballs.
Do Caco Demons poop? Because there is a hole in the back. But there's no room for organs, so I don't understand.
Do they need to? I just kind of assume they're demons.
I don't think they really eat.
These are the important questions.
But there's a hole in the back. Cerithus, I need you to write a letter explaining the biology of Caco Demons to me because it bothers me, okay?
That they seemingly have a butthole but never poop.
They have a butthole, but what would they use it for? They don't eat, so surely they don't poop.
I don't know, probably the same reason that the beholders in WoW have a giant butthole.
Beholders in WoW have a... I don't remember looking at the butthole of beholders in WoW, so...
There was a
Usually I was
glyph.
concerned with the eyeball in my face.
Yeah, no, there was a glyph that you could transfer or change one of your pets out for a beholder, and that way when you summoned it, that's all you could see of it was butthole.
Butthole, all the time, butthole.
What are we doing? Anyway, as usual with Blood, the atmosphere is carried mostly by the music, but since the mod runs in GZ Doom, the combat is actually good. Because combat in build engine games is bad. Flashy and cool, but bad.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
But
you can do so much more with the build engine, in terms of like the effects of weapons. Like there's what part of what made people so enchanted by Blood and by Duke 3D, and that was just the weapons were more interesting than everyone else's weapons. But the combat is jank as heck.
Oh, very much
like
so.
I mean, it's I don't know why it's jank as heck because I'm not such an aficionado of sprite based shooters the way Cerithus is, but you can feel that it's not tight the way it is in the Doom engine games. It's just a little bit slippery somehow. Things don't quite line up the way they should. You can take a certain amount of confidence in, say, the hit scan of a Doom weapon, that I just don't have that level of confidence in the build engine. Everything feels a bit fluffy somehow. Not sure why. Just an impression that I got. I'm sure Cerithus knows the actual reason behind the way it's processed. There's a lot of interesting tech behind each of the engines and the way they work, but I don't understand very much about it.
Alright. Can't really comment on it.
The thing is that these days, the way the technology works is pretty much settled for the most part, which is why every shooter is the same as every other shooter now, I guess, to some extent. But back then, everybody was building everything from the ground up. It was not... There was not just an established way of doing it, and because nobody really had 3D in shooters all that much until, Quake?
But proper 3D?
Yeah, proper 3D. I'm talking real 3D. Like,
yeah, probably Quake.
When Quake came along, that signaled the era of everybody constructing everything out of polygons. Yep. And that's pretty much persisted ever since. But prior to that, coders would find tricks to make 3D appear to happen without actually happening. And that's what we've got with the Doom and the build engines, and even to some extent the more cumbersome engines. Like I think Rise of the Triad is built on the same engine as Wolf 3D and Ken's Labyrinth, I think, except it's been modified extensively.
Yeah,
but
it's a grandfather's axe type deal there. I think it's like it is technically the same engine, but they've modified it so much you can barely recognize it.
But all of those engines, they don't work based on stacking 3D objects on top of each other. They're all based on essentially tricks, coding tricks to make it look like 3D is happening when there are no 3D objects.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is interesting. It's an interesting piece of sort of gaming history. I don't know much about it myself because I'm not really. I guess that if you want to know that sort of thing, I bet there's tons of videos on YouTube about it. But when there was no computing power to build 3D objects, people would find workarounds. They can't have real 3D, so how can we make it appear as though we do?
Yeah. Very much was a different era, that's for sure.
Mind you, maybe in some years' time, it may look the same to the successors in the industry that, oh, well, back in those days they built everything out of polygons, which wasn't really 3D, but we've got these new holographic displays now where everything is actual 3D.
Yeah. Whatever the next big tech jump is. Proper VR,
Yeah.
maybe, that doesn't make people sick.
I'll believe proper VR when I see it, because it's one thing to naysay upcoming technology in the way like, oh, 16K RAM is the most you'll ever need. That's just a lack of vision and a lack of foresight. The issue with VR that I have is that they have said that, oh, this is the age of VR so many times in the past, and it never is, that I'll believe it when I see it. I believe people are actually capable of making convincing VR when I see it.
Of course.
Wow, this guy running around here, this
Oops.
dragoon called Zhao Yun is really into the fantasy.
I just burned my own.
Why would you do this?
Because I put a fire on the floor and just probably stepped into it.
Why would you do this?
I smrat.
Rat.
A good adventure. I do fight good. My next character will be called Clown Show. Excellent. So,
Alrighty.
thank you very much for the email, Cerathus.
Yeah.
I've never actually seen him running around in.
I don't know where he plays.
I would
I
imagine
mean, he's probably on the
play-
EU servers.
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah.
The lag would be impossible for him to play on the.
Yeah, EU servers are a comparatively recent thing, so to speak. So from what I've heard, playing on the American servers for EU people is not the greatest experience in the world. I'm driven to distraction by the slowness of my connection, just being in Oceania, and it's at least playable for me, provided I use an IP tunnel to shave off a few milliseconds so that I can actually see some relationship between the buttons that I'm pressing and what's happening on the screen. But it's quite likely that I'll want to move to an Oceania server when those come out, because there'll be additional server bridging technology in place and so on. So being able to see what this game is supposed to feel like is too much of an attractive proposition to pass up.
Being able to actually weave two OCD abilities between abilities.
I can do it but I can't do it every time.
Yeah. I can do it sometimes. Especially when I'm using abilities like wildfire, where the damage of the explosion at the end of wildfire is depending on how many abilities you hit the target with. Meantime, it's kind of a. Incidentally, how was your first experiences with Machinist?
Confusing.
Yes.
Nothing makes any sense whatsoever. Everything seems to depend on abilities that come later.
Yes.
And they just seem to give you abilities sort of on the basis of just giving you something to do, rather than giving you abilities that actually mesh together. It's very, very confusing because there's no natural logic to anything other than your 1-2-3 combo. Like, you get reconstruction, which is an obvious cooldown.
Yeah. Guaranteed credit for your next ability.
So you know how to use, what that does, except that because of the way the spells change over time, what you use it for changes all the time, because they do not just straight upgrade abilities. They constantly shuffle their relative potencies as well as their absolute potencies.
Yep.
So, like, when you get the inevitable Copper Bell mines, and you will, because you always do, you're at that level. You always want to use reassemble on Hotshot.
Yeah.
Because you don't have clean shot.
The most boring button in the world.
Hotshot is a totally nonsensical button early on because it doesn't actually do anything except damage, and it's not off global cooldown or anything. It's just you press this button and it does some damage, and once you get clean shot, it's not even good damage.
No, it's crap damage. You'll stop pressing it completely. Once you get your turret, you'll need to start pressing it again.
Yeah, on cooldown, because you need your turret.
It doesn't actually start being good until level 72, where it swaps out for air chain.
Air anchor.
Air anchor, thank you. Where it does equivalent damage to drill, so you're going to want to use reassemble on it every chance you get.
Or on drill.
Or a drill.
Whichever is available. I don't really know.
Yeah. If you have full battery, doesn't matter. But I tend to, if you can prioritize air anchor over drill.
Right. Yeah, and then they also at a very low level at like 30, they give you hypercharge, but they don't give you anything. The benefits from hypercharge until another 5 levels have gone by.
No, it just becomes a straight damage cooldown for those 5 levels.
A very, very short, underwhelming damage cooldown. Because it's not a percentage increase, it's a potency increase.
Yeah.
It's a single target only of 20.
Yep, it's not a very big one. So it's
almost unnoticeable. And then you get Heat Blast and suddenly you understand that hypercharge actually has a purpose, as opposed to just annoying you and attempting to try and stack it with reassemble before clean shot comes up, which is what you spend those 5 levels doing.
But it's one of those abilities as well that it keeps changing how you use it. Like you start off, you use it, you fire a couple of heat blasts to get your Gauss shot recharged, and you can do whatever. But later on, you get ricochet and you get more Gauss charges, and at level 74 from memory, you get a third Gauss and ricochet. So if you have the connection, what you're supposed to do is go heat blast Gauss, heat blast ricochet, heat blast, so on like that. We can't do that.
Yeah, but heat blast, for some reason, they decided heat blast is going to be a 1.5 second.
Yeah.
Like, why? That's really confusing. The equivalent ability on, say, Warrior or Dark Knight being like Inner Release or Delirium, respectively, it's a normal skill. When you hit your damage cooldown, you start to spam your mass damage output in a short amount of time. They just have high potency and guaranteed crits. They don't have this weird 1.5 second red-headed stepchild, which is suddenly grafted in there. It's a very strange approach.
You're going to be annoyed later on by auto crossbow too, which you have to be hypercharged to use it. It does not replace your spread shot button, so it takes up a separate slot. But it has the same cone. Does a lot more damage than spread shot because it's got that same 1.5 recast. But it does not rebuild your Gauss shot and ricochet stacks or charges.
I've got sodding X to grind against spread shot too, and it's the same X to grind I had against Unleash, which is that during dungeons you might as well be a 1-button class most of the time.
And it is your only button. Once you get ricochet, you have 2 buttons. Except one's on cooldown most of the time.
It's deeply irritating. Like I know that they know that this is a problem of sorts. It's just not an important one, so it doesn't get changed.
Well, they're getting rid of spread shot.
It's like I like with Unleash on Dark Knights, is that it's too good at what it does to the point where you only ever do it, but it doesn't have anything interesting about it. You just have to hit it all the time, and you can see that they didn't want things to stay this way because, well, when they rebuilt Paladin to actually have AoE, they gave them an AoE combo. So you don't spend infinity amounts of time hammering the same button over and over again. At least you've got 2. And in the case of Dark Knights, that's not it, bro.
No,
For
have
you're
Unleashed,
going
that's
to
it.
you're going to go all the way up through the levels, and I'm at level 60 on Dark Knight, and it's still just Unleash, and then when you've got the MP, you can use your Flood of Darkness or whatever.
Yeah. I've
But
actually
other
started...
than that, that's it's not a rotational ability, it's an MP dependent ability, so yeah, I feel like the Heavensward classes are just a little bit jank, and you can see that pedigree in the Astrologian as well, because the Astrologian has been jank since the year dot.
with Dark Knight, when I'm tanking, I will hit Unleash, and then I'll just single target something just so I can press other buttons.
Yes, and so you can feel like it actually mattered.
But I feel like I'm actually accomplishing something
Yeah.
other than being a damage sponge. Yes.
But the thing is, if you've got 3 or more targets, maximum DPS is just a hammer Unleash over and over again.
But it's such a boring button.
Yes, that is in fact the issue.
Not as boring
But,
as Hotshot, but still boring.
Yeah, I mean that changes eventually. Like, you do get some other stuff to do, but I don't know. There's a lot of things I don't like about the way Dark Knight is built, and I know that there are lots of people who like it for the same reason I dislike it, which is that there's a whole bunch of what feel like surplus buttons to hit. Like, I feel that they're surplus buttons. Other people think, oh well, this class has got a lot of stuff to do, but I'm not sold on it. Like, you've got your off global cooldown Edge of Darkness and Flood of Darkness to do, depending on whether you're single target or AoE, and that's your MP dependent off global cooldown standard spender. And you've got Plunge, which is your whatchamacallit, gap closer, but also it's an off global cooldown damage button, so you've got to hit it. And then you've got Carven Spit, which is an off global cooldown damage button, and you've got your Salted Earth, which is your dot that you put on the ground. And then you've got your Abyssal Drain, which is just another off global cooldown AoE nuke thing. And you just, as you level up, you just acquire more and more of these things, which are just additional buttons to hit between global cooldowns. And I don't actually think that that's a fun way to build a class. It doesn't feel like you're progressing anywhere, I suppose. And I guess the Dark Knight response to me on that would be, Unga Bunga warrior player, you only want to hit Fellcleave over and over again. And all I can really say to that is, damn right I want to hit Fellcleave over and over again. At least that does something. Yeah. But
they sorted out the Machinist for the most part, because it used to be a lot jankier than it used to be completely based
still pretty jank, to be honest.
It is. The fact that as you level up, it changes how it plays every 5 levels. They give you something new, which just has to reshuffle everything.
Yeah, I mean, I've only got to about level 40 on my Machinist, but I do very much have this constant nagging feeling as, I wonder if I'm even doing this right.
At this point, no, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because I don't think there is a right. Early on, I think you hit buttons as they become available, and the difference between doing it right and wrong is negligible because it's all wrong.
Don't matter.
I like the sort of, there are some things I like about the feel and aesthetic of the class to some extent, although I feel like the aesthetics are very, very hit and miss. Like, weapons seem to be sort of either really cool or head-tiltingly strange.
Yes. And I admit, I get very tired of small gun.
Yeah, everything is like, where is my big compensatory firearm?
Yeah, the Eureka weapon is perfect. It's a giant stonking combat shotgun. But
I don't know why they didn't go more down that route. I know they've probably got an aesthetic in mind, but because it's a machinist, right? It's not a gunner.
Yeah.
And maybe they are actually conserving themselves for a different aesthetic to be used later. Maybe there will be the character that uses the ether powered bazooka in future. I don't know.
Well,
but
the machinist kind of gets the ether powered bazooka. But
well, everybody gets an ether powered bazooka on Diadem, so
that's awesome. But we've got one. I think there's only one gunslinger character in the actual game currently. Oh,
yeah, well, but the thing is that her weapon is just the same size as a machinist weapon.
Yeah.
So you've still got thematic overlap there. Like, I was sort of expecting something like a stonking great arquebus or something.
Yeah. Some sort of highly customizable monstrosity.
like if you look at the sorts of axes and swords that warriors and dark knights carry around, where is the equivalent gun? And you can find a few of those types of things in relic weapons, but not all that many. And to be honest, generally speaking, a freaking gunbreaker's gun is bigger than a machinist's gun, and that sort of I find a bit confusing on an aesthetic level.
Yeah. I feel that the machinist should be using kind of a two-handed shotgun type most of the time, but only wielding it one-handed. Because a lot of the time they don't actually use the gun as a gun; they use it more of as an arcane focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought I just feel like there's a bit more. They could afford to be a little bit more playful. I think. Just you're already in like the anime space. You might as well just let things spin out to the point where it's going to have the sort of absurdity that is suitable to the class rather than being so reserved.
Yeah.
Because especially the low level guns are all like, oh well, this is about the size of a matchlock pistol. What's going on here?
I've got a German Luger somewhere. I think I've got it in
where is your opportunity to be Sir Roderick Ponce von Fontelbottom, the magnificent bastard? Why can you not carry around a humongous blunderbuss?
I want some humongous blunderbuss. But yeah, it's a bit of a missed opportunity. Although once you hit Shadowbringers, they do start to address it. Your guns get a bit bigger, for the most part. Like the smallest gun I found is the Dwarven gun. It's still pretty and chunky, and looks like something that the Doom guy left. So I really like that gun.
As machinist is still always going to end up with, when you start a new expansion, you'll be back to small gun again.
Small gun. That's what Glamour's for, I guess. Yeah, I want.
So Roderick Ponce von Fontelbottom was awesome.
Oh yeah. Nice chunky gun. Even if I'm using it as a magic wand half the time. Chunky gun.
What were we talking about?
What were we talking about?
This is the email we just finished.
Alright. In that case, what news have we got?
We got a few small things. Nothing really big this week. Let's see. There really isn't much big this week, but we can follow up with the New World stuff.
Yeah.
I think Ball posted something about that. Yeah. So, we're already facing server merges.
Because they've lost 90% of their... Okay, what they actually started with, they started with just shy of 1 million players. At the highest point, which was just after launch. They've lost 90% of that.
That's a pretty big drop-off.
There's a very big drop-off. But, yeah. People aren't thinking, oh, this is the game that's got 1 million players. They're thinking this is the game that lost 900,000 players.
Yeah. It had 1 million players, and then 900,000 of them decided there was something better to do with their time.
Like staring at drywall.
So, hey, drywall can be pretty entertaining sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. More entertaining than New World, honestly.
Sometimes a spider crawls up the drywall.
So, yeah, they've started announcing that server merges are coming, although they don't seem to do it properly, but... other things. They have announced that they are setting up a public test server.
Yeah.
Yeah, which means they're not using the live server for testing anymore. What they've been doing up until everything all the changes they've made, they just put through straight to live.
Yeah, that's going to work out great. Even if you got a relatively large internal testing team, when it comes to MMOs, the raw number of people that you need to test the crap, for as many people are going to experience it, you really need PTRs for that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's baffling that a company that's launching an MMO wouldn't have PTRs.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, Final Fantasy doesn't usually PTR things. They've got an actual internal testing team that aren't incompetent.
Yeah.
I think there is a certain amount of public testing, but I'm not quite sure exactly how that works.
I think it's privately recruited.
Yeah, I think it's
100
it's
players.
privately recruited sort of invitational type testing.
Yeah. They want to keep it all kind of under their hat.
Yeah, but they still are going further than what you can get with just an internal testing team, even though theirs may be really good. Just because of the raw number of machines that whatever you're pushing out is going to run on, and the sheer amount of people that are going to be experiencing it, they'll find some way to break it.
Yeah.
So just good practice, especially if you're new to the MMO thing, to have a PTR of some kind before you go try and cram this stuff out on live. Another game that's failed horribly cramming stuff out on live is PSO22.
Oh no, not again.
They love to just cram stuff out on live and not test any of it.
I think the testing is not their problem. I think never asking people what actually sounds like fun is their problem.
Yeah, so in addition to not testing it at all with the public, they don't really test it in-house either. They just kind of get something that kind of works and push it out, and it's always buggy and broken on launch day.
Yeah. Why, Sega? Do you hate money and success?
You had a winner. All you had to do was, actually make a video game.
Yeah. Basically, they had the PSO2 already. What people basically wanted there was that, but with kind of an open world area to explore in between.
I'm not even sure they wanted that. They just wanted that with a new coat of paint, and I'm not even sure they wanted that. They just wanted more of what they had.
Largely, yeah. So, and they got it wrong. We got this very shiny world with nothing in it.
Not even sure the world looks that good. TBH.
Really
It's
doesn't.
got a lot of pretty particle effects, but there's nothing in it.
Same sort of world we had in Xenoblade Chronicles X a few years ago on the Wii U, and it looked better. It was also covered in giant robots, so there's that as well.
So yeah, that's that. And they're staying stubborn on a few issues in New World. I've heard they're not fixing the minimap issue. Do they even have a minimap?
No minimap. That's the shoe.
Yeah, so there's okay. So that is the shoe. Yeah, they're just not going to put that in. Apparently, they're staying stubborn about it.
Yeah, I don't see honestly why. Like it's a basic feature of MMOs for a reason. And I'd like to walk around and just use the minimap sometimes, and not just have to walk around with my face buried in the full map. That's what we currently do.
Yep. So yeah, just a little update on the continued downsliding of New World.
Yeah, I think it might be getting too late.
Oh, they're not pulling this one out.
No, I don't think it's too late. Ready. You've also got Lost Ark coming up, which is also by Amazon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just don't trust Amazon as a company.
I don't know what they have every resource in the world. They have some of the greatest minds making games.
But all they've got is a stack of money and people that could do something and no way to direct those people.
Exactly.
And they're just going to stick their nose in everything and be all Amazon.
Yeah.
And have no clue what they're doing.
You know when you play a game and you can feel that whoever made the game actually genuinely cared for what they were making? Even some AAA games, you still feel that.
Mm-hmm.
New World was completely lacking in that feel.
Yeah.
You play Final Fantasy XIV and you can feel the love in it. Most of the time, anyway.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure Yoshi P's gone on record as saying that this is the game he considers to be his life's work, his magnum opus. Like, this is what he wants to be remembered for. I mean, he's the director of Final Fantasy 16 as well. But
yeah.
it's not the thing that he considers to be his.
Never actually looked properly at 16. Isn't it a sequel to 11 or something?
I think it's standalone.
Yeah, I think it's standalone.
Or set in that universe, maybe.
I think that the whole sequel thing didn't really play out the way they wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it just kind of fell on its face.
Hey, it's a bad idea, and they let it go. I got more respect for it.
Like, Final Fantasy can do the occasional dabbles into the same world, but going back into Ivalice occasionally with the Tactics games, the spin-off games from the Tactics series, and Final Fantasy 12. But beyond that, they really don't need to keep making continuous sequels for any one Final Fantasy. They seem to do much better when they leave them alone.
We're looking at you, 13.
Yeah, I do. I think that the approach of allowing Final Fantasy 14 to be the repository for homages is the better way of doing things, the better way of respecting those older worlds and properties.
Yeah. So yeah. Next up, we have 2 services, in air quotes, one of which has been defunct for a while now, and one of which continues to grace modern games with its presence, both causing problems this week.
Grace? Is that the word you're using?
Yeah.
Eh?
You can smell the sarcasm in my voice, can't you?
Oh my, yes.
So, first up is Games for Windows Live. Capcom had 3 games in the past that were right on Game for Windows Live, and are suddenly having issues, and have been having small issues since then, but started having big issues the past month. With Lost Planet 1 and 2, Street Fighter 4, the original version, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City. And because Games for Windows Live is now defunct, and Capcom was really bad at putting stuff together and took shortcuts back then, these games just don't work anymore. They're having serious issues all month long, and they just delisted them.
Yep.
So, not sure what the status is on that, but Microsoft's failed Games for Windows Live comes back to bite us again. And this is why you should not put your PC games tied to a digital PC game service. That if you do not have it up and online, causes all kinds of problems.
Windows Live, Games for Windows Live was just bad along every axis.
Yeah, I'm not sure about what about it recently made it particularly bad. Maybe Microsoft had a dummy server running somewhere, and they just turned it off.
Yeah.
For games like this. But yeah, these games need to be taken back and have the Games for Windows Live part scrubbed completely, and have it work. Have the games work independent of it.
This is just the same. It has the same reasoning and the same problems as the big Denuvo debacle we had recently. Did we talk about that?
It's in the news this week. It was the other thing I was going to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, what Denuvo represents once you've incorporated into your game is a coder burden to pull it back out again when it inevitably causes trouble. Because, I mean, you're going to end up iterating towards the point where you don't use it. That seems like the inevitable position, because you've got a contract to Denuvo for like a year, right, to put it in your game.
Yeah.
And it will cause problems. It just will, because it always does. So you're trying to protect your IP from piracy, which, I mean, most people don't really believe that works, but laying that aside, let's even assume that to some extent maybe it does. You don't really need a year's worth of protection, but you paid for it, so they always leave it on for a year minimum. But, I mean, it causes problems, so maybe we could reduce that to 6 months, to 3 months, to 1 month, to 2 weeks, to 1 week, to launch day, whatever. And then eventually you're just like, well, we're paying for a year of this, and now we've got to pull it out again, and that's just going to cost us more money. So why did we put it in to begin with? And then you got to add on to the other things like the new Intel series CPUs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they released a new series of CPUs because they always do, right? And they've moved over to that new approach. Well, it's not really new. In fact, it's been used in mobile CPUs for a while, I think, where you've got your oomph cores and your power efficient cores in your CPU and you move processes to them depending on what's appropriate. I don't know much about that sort of tech, so that's my understanding of the matter. But apparently Denuvo was shitting the bed because these new CPUs, because most PCs don't use this type of technology until now, and so the CPU would move the Denuvo process to the efficiency core or something, let's say, and Denuvo would say, "Oh, you're suddenly using me on a separate system. Panic, panic, panic! Shut everything down. Shut it down." And it would screw the game. And Denuvo are like, shrug, we've already done our coding to make it work with this. It's the developers have to catch up and fix their game to incorporate it properly. It's like, well, why are you paying money to sign up to a year of having to do additional development work for a middleware piracy protection thing which stopped being relevant after the first week if it was ever relevant, and everybody hates you for having it in the game? Where is your profit? Who does that actuarial calculation? Is it still being done? And Games for Windows Live is sort of like, this is what Denuvo looks like a few years down the track.
Yeah.
You've got this sort of broken appendage of a thing which does nothing but cause trouble and requires you to dredge up your back catalogue to re-engineer it out in order for your game to be working to protect your own reputation.
Yep. So the most recent game to pull Denuvo is Fallen Order, the Star Wars game.
The actually quite good one.
Yeah, and they had to they pulled it because the contract was expiring a bit early, and I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, why even bother with anti-piracy software if you're just going to have to invest even more money to pull it? You cannot make that much money in sales to offset the cost of having to A, incorporate this thing into whatever the heck you're putting on the PC, and B, pull it out later. It just the money addition doesn't add up.
I mean, I don't feel like I can say that because there's a lot of times I feel like I'm making a common sense assumption, right? That, oh well, people are going to do this or people are going to do that, and invariably I'm wrong on those accounts. Everything that I assume is normal and common sense for a person to do is never the thing that happens in real life. So I don't know if maybe there is a lot of money to be made from extensive utilization of Denuvo. I don't really see what that would look like. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No, I think the common sense thing here would be for them just not to use it because it doesn't make sense, but because using it doesn't make any sense, that's why they do it. But yeah, that isn't the end of Denuvo woes. I had them queued up as the next thing. Denuvo also has an aspect that checks servers for some of the online DRM stuff, and Denuvo had domain issues this weekend.
It was for an incredibly retarded reason as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's like they just hadn't renewed the domain because they forgot to check.
Yeah, something like that.
Like, should that not be an almost unrecoverable hit to your reputation if you're Denuvo?
You would think so, but I really think Denuvo just exists for shareholders to believe in something. Like, it's like an old wives' tale for shareholders. It's like something that's not true at all, but makes them feel better. Like, what's a good example? Oh, I can't think of one now because then I'm put it on the spot, but you know what I mean. It's just, it's not true that Denuvo or any type of draconic DRM like this actually helps your profitability, but by telling your shareholders, don't worry, for the first few weeks, at least nobody will be able to pirate it, it makes them all breathe a sigh of relief.
So, well, I mean, what you're actually thinking is it's like wearing masks for COVID.
That's what I want to say, but what I was strategically avoiding saying, because it's the example that popped into my head 3 times, because I don't want to get Susan mad at us. But yeah, all Denuvo games that use the online check were affected. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Persona 4 Golden, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Wolfenstein Youngblood, Planet Zoo, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, the list goes on.
Good games in there too.
You could just, not. You could just not. Like, Denuvo, you don't owe Denuvo anything. Why bother?
You do a fair bit at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I don't understand how it is conceivable that their company's reputation can withstand this sort of beating that they should have taken over this affair. But I mean, if you look at the way the analytics are done, like they'll be looking at like monthly simultaneous users and those sorts of weird metrics that shareholders are supposed to care about if they that shareholders pretend to understand enough to care about and that sort of thing. But those metrics are going to take a brutal hit from like, a weekend of people not being able to play the game that they want to play. And on the weekend when you've got, how much free time do you have outside your day off, Fern, to play the game you've been looking forward to playing all week?
Not much at all.
That's valuable time. That is super valuable time, and you don't want de novo to get in the way of it. So that's damaging to your bottom line. And you've got this company just sort of waving it away like, oh, it's no big deal. We just forgot to renew the domain or whatever. No big deal.
No.
Like, really? How? Yeah. I don't see how the publishers won't just storm out in a huff at this point.
They must really believe that piracy is a huge problem. And
the thing is that's not even industry standard thinking anymore. I mean, Gabe Newell paid to that way of thinking a long time ago with Steam, and now everybody looks at Steam as the gold standard. And Steam is like, piracy is a service problem. Look what happens when we give people an easy way to get hold of the games they want to play and stop forcing them to endure bullcrap to do it. I mean, that thinking should have gone the way of the dodo a long time ago because it's in evidence.
But 2020 has shown us people can have contradictory views on a subject, and in fact have direct evidence to the contrary of their current belief presented to them, and just not give a crap.
Nice save.
Yeah.
Like, we know people can get like that, and I think de novo falls into this kind of trap. They may or may not be consciously aware that de novo doesn't matter, but they're going to keep doing it anyway because they think it's good for them somehow.
Because of reasons.
Yeah, basically, because reasons. Like, wear the mask, sheep. Use the de novo, developers.
You need to work on your Fauci voice.
Please
don't. I
don't.
was trying to do I can't do Fauci tonight.
Good.
My nose hurts too much from getting stung by a wasp.
Did you even tell that story?
No, I didn't. I was out spreading pine straw this weekend. Or not this weekend, but yesterday. And a wasp just decided this was his day to be Mission Impossible wasp. And went right between all the pine straw and got right at my nose and just jabbed me. And so I have a big old clown nose right now. It's incredibly painful. I hate it.
Yes. It is.
You ever been stung on the nose? No, you haven't. Let me tell you, it hurts like a mofo.
I've had the earlobe.
I was stung about an inch below my right eye by a bee.
Why you do this?
Generally, I don't get stung either. Like, I don't have many stings in my life. There's a lot of bugs down here that could sting me, but I've been pretty lucky with avoiding them. But this wasp, he was on a mission.
Screw that guy in particular. Watch this.
I was probably waving some pine straw near his home, and he was like, "What you think you're doing?"
Yeah, that and wasps are assholes.
And he got me to stop for about 15 minutes because that hurt. Holy crap!
Yeah. Anywho,
So yeah.
what's next?
What's next? This is not explicitly video game related, but I wanted to mention it because it's a trend going on and will impact our way to let developers know what we think about certain decisions they're making. YouTube is removing all dislikes on videos and making them private for the video poster to view on their own, and you can still dislike the video, but you can't see them anymore.
Okay, I'm not sure what this hopes to achieve.
Yeah, I don't understand. Either I don't understand what it's supposed to achieve, or I don't understand why they think I'm dumb enough to think that it's clever.
It's a sliding bar, basically.
I think their major influencers and corporate backers are mad that the public doesn't like their crap.
Well, that's what everybody said, and the announcement got ratioed. One of the worst ratios that I've ever actually seen.
Here's a funny idea.
Yeah.
Stop putting out crap.
Yeah, like they're just butt mad that people don't like their stuff, and they can't take people telling them their stuff is crap.
This is because of that sodding. What was it? That play thing or whatever it is. You know, their year in review.
The rewind.
Yeah, that's the one.
That was an abomination. They didn't do it last year.
I bet it's because of that. They're still sore. They're still mad.
They threatened to remove dislikes back when they did the last one back in 2019, I think.
It's because it bombed so hard. There was nothing about what made YouTube good in it. It was all just celebrities.
Well,
it was all bad and dumb and bad and dumb and bad and dumb.
It got more and more sanitized as the rewinds went on to have more and more corpo types until eventually you got Will Smith. Oh yeah, rewind
exactly.
time.
Will Smith has nothing to do with YouTube. Why is he there?
So
he used to
cringe.
Even how cringy they were. You'd have like the video game dudes. You'd have the slow mo guys in there. You'd have PewDiePie in there. You have people on YouTube who people would at least be aware of.
Yeah.
Who were YouTube built and grew up in the YouTube community, and now you got like all these TV celebrities that nobody on YouTube gives a crap about.
Mm-hmm. Was PewDiePie even in that one?
They distanced themselves from him the second that hit piece went out about him that called him anti-Semite went around.
You'll have to be more specific on that.
The one where he did the Nazi things as a joke. You know, where he paid the dudes to say the Nazi lines.
Those two African kids with the sign.
Yeah, he paid them their thing to do a Nazi thing just to see if they would do it, and recorded it because he's PewDiePie. And this made everybody decide that he was a white supremacist.
Yeah, they naturally did it because it was funny and they wanted money.
Yeah, Disney canceled his sponsorship, and he got yeeted from all the big major promotions from YouTube and stuff.
That's right. Now I remember.
Yeah. So,
people being salty at PewDiePie happens so often it's hard to keep track.
Yeah,
isn't being salty at PewDiePie sort of like yelling at the tide for coming in?
Yeah.
Like, it's going to have roughly the same effect on his general wealth and livelihood.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I never liked PewDiePie's stuff, but during the time, I remember defending him quite a bit.
I don't care much for his stuff, but I do respect him.
I've never seen any of his stuff, but there are people that are mad at him who I don't like, so I'll support him.
Enemy of my enemy.
It's like, oh man, have you seen JonTron lately?
No, I
have seen exclusively people trying to cancel him over and over again.
He did turn up with a big shovel not long ago. A metaphorical shovel. Just started spreading poo around, I know that much.
Oh, he kicked the hornet's nest something fantastic. I posted it in the politics board a while ago. If you scroll up in there, it's a few weeks ago. But he's just been on a tear. It's just trust the science, bro, and posting the articles we can't talk about because YouTube.
Yeah, I think he's ran out of F's to give.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love John. Keep being a good boy, John. You do you.
But yelling outside of Gwyneth Paltrow's shop, please.
I was never a consumer of his material. I don't even know what his original material was because I heard about him much later than most people seem to. But he seems to be able to produce really genuinely entertaining content.
He does.
And I appreciate this.
Yeah. His early content is, a young YouTuber. He turned I started watching him right after he turned 21 and discovered the wonders of the drunk stream.
Oh dear. But yeah, a lot of his old stuff was retro game reviews and things like that. But he's kind of moved away from that.
Yeah, he's moved on to just whatever he feels like at the time now that he thinks he can make funny.
Yeah, which he usually does make funny.
Yeah,
He's had a couple of misses, but
yeah, but for the most part, he's genuinely entertaining.
yeah,
and I think a lot of that has to come with his DGAF attitude towards everybody these days.
yeah.
Like falling on his face in that Destiny garbage was probably the best thing that ever happened to him. I don't know if he acknowledges that yet, but he seems to have just stabilized and been able to just genuinely make people happy. His subreddit wants to hate him. It's hilarious.
But they can't.
But they can't, because they came to him because they like his content, and it's still just as good as it was. And they can't go anywhere else for that type of content.
Hmm?
Well, his content is mainly just him being kind of a dork and not putting a filter on.
Yeah.
And also flex tape.
Also flex tape. But yeah, I really like the guy. I do keep going back and watching his Goop review. Partly because he just made Gwyneth Paltrow's insanity hilarious, and partly because he goes and spends a good amount of time on that video on the streets of New York yelling at random people. And getting really strange looks.
That's John.
That's John.
Yeah. So, removing the dislikes button is not to help people like John. It's to help people like your corpo types, your big news organizations, the White House especially, which is getting
I think that that's what's at the center of it, is that the real enemy of the dislike button is Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon and his cohorts or his puppet masters, they do not produce content that people want to see on YouTube.
It's not that. It's that they can't sculpt public opinion if everybody can see that nobody agrees with them. Like, and it's like the anti-lockdown protests in New Zealand, right? The media's approach hasn't been to try and convince people that lockdowns are good. It has been to try and convince people that nobody thinks that they are bad. It's all about setting up peer pressure. That's been their entire strategy. So they are always acting to try and minimize the protests so that it looks like there's nobody who thinks like you if you don't like them, so that you'll stay quiet. And if everybody can see that there's just a mass dislike bomb on every announcement from the White House, then they will realize that actually maybe it's okay to disagree with the president.
But, hey, most popular president in U.S. history, right? Right?
There is definitely nothing wrong with the way the election was conducted. It was the most secure election in American history, Susan.
Yes.
Right.
You can smell a certain tone, but don't tell Susan that you can smell it.
Smell your tone, Susan.
So yeah, there's that. It's going to protect the big corpo types like Blizz Activision who get hammered with their reveal trailers. It's going to protect the movie companies who put out woke garbage that people blow up like the Ghostbusters thing. This is what this thing is to protect. And this gives us as an audience, at least in the consumer sense, less of a voice with these people, because that was a very effective voice we had right there in telling companies we didn't want this crap. That if you wanted to rattle a company's cage, seeing them get bombed on YouTube was a good way to do it. And we just don't have that outlet after they remove this. So we won't be able to as easily get across to Blizzard, hey, you dum-dums, Warcraft 3 Reforged is a piece of hot garbage.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that they can see all that. They don't have it hidden from them.
Yeah, but
when you hit the dislike button, they can still see exactly what it is. And this is about suppressing people from seeing that there are other people agreeing with them.
I think, yeah. I do think there is a part of it where, because the public doesn't have to acknowledge it, they don't have to acknowledge it. And I get that's kind of in the ballpark of what you're saying. But they can consciously be aware that there is a number of dislikes that is very big, but they can just kind of ignore it. And I think their psychology is at a point where they would do that at most of these big companies.
Well, I mean, if you're willing to follow along with that postmodernist way of thinking that all you need to do is think otherwise and that makes it true, like a lot of people in the California bubble do. I mean, then I suppose it does grease the wheels on that type of thinking that if it's out of sight, then it's out of mind. Where the number doesn't mean as much anymore somehow in some magical way as it did before. So, but I don't know. I don't feel the slightest bit dissuaded to hammer the dislike button on everything that I dislike.
Oh,
If anything, I've
just
just
look.
hammer it some more.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you can look in the comments too, and probably
But
it won't.
honestly, any time that I see that ratio has been hidden, because you used to be able to, hide it, but
Yeah.
I very rarely click like or dislike. I don't know how many people are like me in that regard. That I will often watch a video all the way to the end and enjoy it, but I won't click like and I won't click dislike. I'll often watch a video that I think is crap, and I won't click like and I won't click dislike. I will stop watching something if I don't like it, and I will watch something all the way to the end if I do. And I know that there are a lot of YouTubers who use those as their primary metrics, but whenever I see that somebody has been sensitive enough about their like dislike ratio to hide it, I always use those buttons without fail.
Yeah.
If they are drawing enough attention to it by not wanting to see it, then I always click those buttons. And now that everything is not going to be seen, I'm more likely to hit the dislike button than I was before.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you go in the comments, there'll be one guy that just has in quotes dislike on like every video now.
Yeah, probably.
The dislike guy. There'll probably be like several accounts dedicated to it. And it's getting to a point where we're going to have to, on the internet, to have any kind of communication with each other, because it seems like we're trending in this direction of taking the social out of social media, which I'm all in favor of on a broad scale if we did it all at once. It could just go back to media. Go back to independent, smaller communities. That would be great. But we're getting to a point where to be able to communicate online at any type of major website, you're going to have to get something like a dissenter. Because they're just eventually this creeps towards we need to remove the comment sections because there's harassment in there.
Well, I mean that's the thing though, right? When you have small communities, you have to make the best of the people that you have available, which means you need to learn to be tolerant of their point of view when they disagree with you, because they're all you've got. If you live in a small town, your neighbours are all you've got, and you need to be able to count on your neighbours, even if you think that their opinions on the Labour Party are crap or whatever. They are the people you have handy in a pinch. But online, you can just cultivate a monoculture which suits you, because you can just filter out all of the other people that you don't like. You don't need to worry about what their opinions are, because you never have to see them again. You can just cultivate your community. And that creates a sort of a very specialized form of insular thinking and sort of balkanized behavior that is basically corrosive to the human condition as a whole, because we're social creatures meant to live in social environments. And it's very true that the social contract is an important method of regulating human behavior, classifying certain things as unacceptable, but the idea that there is no sort of general tolerance required of other people in order to exist together with them has what has generated the ridiculous amount of polarization we see in society today, where the only thing that is acceptable is absolute agreement.
Yeah.
And just people are not used to it anymore. People are not used to meeting somebody and speaking with them about whatever, and then having an interchange of ideas on the topic. They measure people by how much do they agree with me.
Yeah, it's it is weird looking at the younger crowd. They don't like communicating with strangers in face-to-face conversations. And they get really either defensive or they go into a shell if you challenge any idea they have, because they don't know how to handle it.
Well, yeah, they're not exposed to it. They've never been put in that situation before, because they get all of their socialization through a monoculture generated in the public school system.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that we've set up the internet in such a way to do this, but you got to come up with some way to. I don't think you can put the internet back in the box at this point. So you got to come up with some way to
I don't
bend
think
that.
you. I don't think you need to. I think you just need to abolish public schooling.
Well, that would help.
Like
But
I have an axe to grind against public schooling. I think it's like I also have an axe to grind against democracy in particular. Like I feel like democracy is basically a DPS cooldown that you use to increase dramatically for a short time the prosperity of a given civilization, but it also once it runs out you start casting from hit points most of the time. But I think public schooling is an even more exacerbated case of that, and where there are goods that it can accomplish, but the drawbacks that will immediately eventuate once those minimal goods have been accomplished are so high that you would never actually push that button. But I think actually that was the United States founders' opinion on the matter as well. I'm pretty sure James Madison said something about public schooling being the dumbest idea out. But yeah, I think that public schooling has become, in the modern day, coupled to the type of thinking that into the internet and social media has constructed, a way of generating drones only capable of thinking in one way.
yeah, and you won't find me arguing for public schooling, especially in the U.S., where they are the most powerful institution outside of government as far as swaying policy and lawmaking goes.
Well, they decide which government's going to get voted for in future, so arguably they're more powerful than the government.
Yeah, it's a mess. Get your kids out of public schools.
I mean, it's not to say that there aren't well-meaning people who work in public schools, but being well-meaning is not really enough, to be honest. You aren't going to sway the current of the culture as a whole just by being well-meaning.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, there's a massive institutional tide that drives the way people think, and public schooling drives people towards thinking in an increasingly narrow way because the people who run it can curate who does the teaching and curate people along the lines of the narrow, insular thinking the internet has encouraged. So it's basically social media thinking bleeds out of the internet and into the real world. And when it happens at an institutional level and your institutions adopt this, then you end up with massive polarization in your institutions. And that's sooner or later going to swing to one side or the other. And thanks to the teachers' unions, in the case of education, they already had a massive advantage. So the polarization swung all the way to one side.
and just by the way, in case you're wondering, I guarantee your school board is made up of fat, slobby men, crazy cat ladies, and Karens. Not exactly the pinnacles of human society.
Possibly rainbow-haired lunatics also.
Yeah, not exactly who you would want teaching your kids or deciding who teaches your kids. In fact, pretty much the exact opposite of who you would want deciding who teaches your kids.
But yeah, I feel like social media is an accelerator on all of these things because it allows you to... It normalizes to you the idea of a world where everyone agrees with you.
Yeah, if you could find a way to expunge the block button, you could alleviate some of the problem, but I don't even think that would fix it.
I don't think that would work because they would use other forms of blocking, such as doxing, such as real-world harassment, that type of thing. That's what they do, and that's what they do. Like, well, it's not in another world. The say the jury on the Rittenhouse case wouldn't be in such peril because it would be much harder for people to punish them for the potentially making the quote wrong unquote decision.
Yeah.
But the world we currently live in is one where there are lots and lots of ways to take punitive action to against people using the tools of social media.
But yeah, and losing the dislike button does hurt quite a bit. To bring it back to the original topic, I really think this makes us lose a voice and gets it harder to rally people behind a button.
Are we actually losing the dislike button though?
We're not losing the button. We're losing the ability to see the number of dislikes.
Yeah, we can't see the ratio. We can't look at something terrible and be confident that it has been ratioed into oblivion. They don't want people to know that because they don't want people to know that they're not alone. That's one of the primary goals of propaganda is to isolate people and mentally isolate people, make them think that there is no one who agrees with them. It's the standard propaganda tool. It serves two purposes: to humiliate people and to isolate people. That's what it's for. Propaganda is never intended to convince anybody of anything. They aren't hiding the like-dislike ratio because they want people to like the content. That's not the point. The point is they don't want anybody to know that the content is disliked.
But yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing I thought worth bringing up because it does it impacts.
The thing is that the circles in which we move overlap heavily with those ones, with those rules, those sort of outlines for the conduct in the public square as it exists on the internet. Like that is where we live, for better or for worse, is in that world where the internet touches everything, and the way people behave on the internet influences everything in the real world now.
So yeah, that is the YouTube dislike thing. We got anything else?
Oh,
Mm.
really?
Jump Force is closing down.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, couldn't wrap my head around that one.
It was a deeply terrible game, so I played around with it for a little bit, and I had a few laughs, but it didn't exactly pull me back because it was by turns broken and incomprehensible. So
yeah, it was $20 fun. It wasn't $80 fun.
I think that there are some cool concepts in there that could be brought out and built upon by a competent developer.
Yes.
But they were not a competent developer.
No. And some of the characters are...
I don't know why you would do that.
What did they do to Sabo?
Cell shading is a thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you could have just done that. Like everyone else who makes anime games.
There are other games out there, particularly with the One Piece characters and their ridiculous, overblown proportions, that look good. But, like, Sabo particularly, he's seen some crap in this game. Oh, some of the characters are just horrible to look at. Not exactly sure what All Might's face is supposed to be doing at a given moment either. But yeah.
I also think that it's a fundamentally terrible idea to have elemental affinities in a game like that.
It is. It makes no sense.
Like, the whole point of a game like that is to be able to play your favorite characters, not to play the character that is optimal against another character. Like, it's just such a weird idea that you would try and graft into what is ostensibly a fighting game of sorts, a strict hard counter mechanic, so that certain characters are just better against other characters by default. Like, my experience is I liked to play Rukia from Bleach, but when I came up against Sabo, that was just a freaking nightmare.
Yeah. Hard counter. Enjoy.
If I ran into any problems in that game for the brief period I played, Garo was the answer because he had a move that had like a gorillion invincibility frames on it.
Oh yeah, Garo's
broken in every game he appears in. Like, I remember playing one of the Naruto fighting games, and Garo was just monstrously broken. Not as bad as some of the other characters. Like, the most broken ones were ones like Sasori and that, who were like, if the puppet users in Blaze Blue were designed by somebody who only simped for them and wanted them to win every fight by never needing to get close to the opponent and being able to beat the tar out of them, then that's the puppet users in the Naruto games.
Yeah. There was some fun ideas in Jump Force, but just bad execution.
But the fun ideas are very much just ideas. Like, they did not just not quite stick the landing. It would be very playable if they had just failed to stick the landing. But no, they took a great idea and then just did it wrong in every available way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Jump Force, terrible game. Don't pay for it unless it's on deep discount. You might get a couple of laughs if you can get a deep enough discount not to feel bad for having spent your money. But they're discontinuing sales, DLC, virtual currency, etc., as of 25th of the 8th next year.
Are they just going to open everything up, people?
I have no idea what will remain. They're only saying about what's going away, which is everything. So you're not going to be able to log on to the multiplayer lobby. There'll be no online events or guilds, notice boards, leaderboards, rewards, in-game store, that sort of stuff. No ranked play. All of that's going away. I presume that all of the offline stuff and sort of like unranked, unmatched mate stuff that just requires a matchmaking space will still be there. And anything that you bought beforehand, of course, is still going to be there. All the DLC that you purchased ahead of time. So if you, for some reason, really like Jump Force, and you really want to play as All Might but haven't bought him yet, buy him before he disappears, because you won't be able to. They're going to just end all service and pretend it never existed.
Enjoy.
Which is probably the best way to treat it, honestly.
Yeah.
Just pretend it never happened. This was a bad idea. We did everything wrong. Let's just not. Let's just not.
Let's just not do this again, shall we?
Oh, dearie me. So yeah, I think that's everything we got.
I think it is. So let us start packing up and getting out of here. As you can see, I'm trying PvP on my Dark Knight now. It is going well.
Oh dear.
I can hear the quotes around well.
Yeah. PvP in Final Fantasy isn't exactly the most highest
It's not the tightest experience.
It is fun, and it's a good way to get Moogle toadstones.
Well, it's also a free burst of EXP once a day.
It's also why I'm here.
I still don't do it. Like, I just don't. PvP is just not something I want in my world when it comes to Final Fantasy. Like, I feel like it's just the world works better in my head if it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It feels too gamey. I think that I could get behind their new one that they announced. You know, the push the cart one.
Yeah.
That they announced, because it's just a game.
Well,
it's very, very just a game, as opposed to actually people who have an awful lot of extrinsic threats to their lives, then just risking their lives in gladiatorial combat for no reason.
Well, they've reframed it since the early days. It's all just war games between the three game companies.
Yeah, but that doesn't really seem credible.
Especially when you're smacking each other with swords.
But it's all non-lethal, you see.
Yeah, well, except for the people who actually have to respawn, which is, the Warriors of Light.
It's just temporarily lethal.
Yeah. Just as well that the Warriors of Light can shrug off death. It's fine.
It's like Yakuza. Yeah, you stab that guy and threw him off the top of the roof, but he's totally K. Kazuma never kills anybody.
Yeah, he's not dead, he's just K.
So yeah, I think that is everything. All right, closing comments, and let's get out of here.
I don't want to talk to anyone. Say that every week.
Nor do I, but at the rate, the incredibly slow rate this illness is progressing, I might be able to get a day off work out of it.
Hooray!
I have a funny feeling I'm going to need it.
Yeah, I hope I can figure out how my work week's going to go next week. It's either going to go really big or really small, and it'll be the light week or it'll be a stupidly busy week.
Also, announcements before we go. Rantathon will be on the weekend of the year.
Weekend of the 11th.
Tentative, because we have schedules everywhere that may turn into a mess.
Yeah, my schedule is prone to explode at any given moment.
Yeah, the 11th is a work day for me that there's no way I will ever get off.
But you're working on Sunday now? Oh,
it'll be the 12th to the 13th for you.
Yeah. For us, it'll be the 12th and 13th.
Yes, the 11th for me, the 12th, 13th for you.
Ari and I are in discussions about doing a sort of a mini rantathon for the other show.
Yeah.
The other show.
I know it's COVID.
Yeah, it's a different thing difficult thing to arrange precisely what we're going to do. I mean, there's a lot of material. Goodness knows that Brandon has provided us with enough. But
heck, we could probably make a whole thing out of the Rittenhouse stuff.
The question is, will I have any voice left after Rantathon to do Rantathon 2 Electric Boogaloo?
Yeah, so sometime in the next few weeks, or we'll plan it for around Wrath of Fun Time. We'll try and get you guys a year wrap up of Mostly Peaceful, because we got a lot to analyze after our last episode, where I need to go through and really lay out my thoughts about how I done goofed with my assumptions that the judiciary branch of the U.S. government still functioned.
Right. I know
Is
nothing about any of this.
That is quite a bit where most of my stuff that was wrong last year comes from, was that assumption.
Okay. All right.
So
Stay
yeah,
posted for that.
We'll get y'all updated and stuff.
Oh, excuse me.
And I think that's it, folks. We'll see you next week. Sayonara. Bye-bye.